A lot of people will watch this for the inspiration of building a business on an app thing. So you want to understand from scratch. 24 घंटे में 1 lakh downloads कैसे आए थे?
We knew that the biggest app in India for scanning is CamScanner, which is a Chinese product, and that's gotten banned. We saw that as an opportunity that here's an Indian alternative that's available for you. We are doing a pan-India business plan competition. Whoever wins gets 25 lakhs in funding. We entered that competition, eventually ended up winning it. So we knew how to build product, but we didn't know how to build a company.
और वो 25 लाख रुपए का क्या करा?
So if there was no company, there was no funding. That 25 lakhs didn't come.
Help me understand, आपके पास एक ऐप है और आपके पास 40 लाख रुपए हैं. How would you go about marketing that app?
Everyone wants it. Nobody really needs it. So when you tell someone this will ease your life, they'll say yes, yes, of course. But document upload करने वाला part जो है ना वो.
How much do you earn from an app?
So
स्कैनर का जो कागज ऐप का आइडिया था वो कैसे आया?
My wife had no clue about our health insurance. Where is it? Do we have one? You need to organize this information and share it with her. The excitement fizzles out quickly. We are struggling to find one document. ये document कहीं और पड़ा है, वो document कहीं और पड़ा है. My first thought is, if someone could do this for me, how great it would be. And I thought there must be some product for it. And I couldn't find anything. And that's when the thought came that can AI do this?
जब AI के बारे में कोई नहीं सोच रहा था. How hard or easy was the decision to close a business?
It was difficult. So maybe 60 odd people and 200 odd technicians to tell them that from next month onwards, there's nothing. You have to figure out your own thing. Very difficult for us to do. These people are not going to have a job next month and we are somewhere responsible for that.
घर कैसे चला रहे थे इस समय पे? आपका फर्स्ट जो आइडिया था इंडिया इंटर्न्स वो कैसे शुरू हुआ था और क्यों शुरू करा था आपने?
So India Interns was just after third year. So actually we were doing our internships, the mandatory third year internship. I was interning at SR Steel in Surat, near Surat, Hazira. And so all of us interning, this was post TechFest. So TechFest is, it starts around April, May when you start preparing for it. And then January is when the event would happen. So it was almost 8-9 months of like very busy period for anyone in the core team. So 2005 to 6, I was busy with that. 6 is when, after TechFest, summer is when my internship's going on. And my friend, again, my TechFest teammate, Robin, now based out of Canada, he once called me saying that or rather wrote an email to me saying that I'm thinking of something around internships. The idea is that we, being from IITs, have certain privileged companies are coming on campus to hire for internships. Still, there are people in our batch also who
end up not getting it.
Or find it difficult to get. What would be the challenge for students who do not get this opportunity, where the companies are not coming on campus? For them, it is even more struggle. So there should be something for it. And if there is a Naukri.com there or a Monster.com there for jobs, why should there not be an internship platform? And that's how the idea of India Interns, the first thought was around that we were doing our internships, we had faced how the process was, we had spoken to our friends who had challenges, and we realized there should be a platform. So Robin called or sent me an email, and I said, looks interesting, let me think about it. Then another of my TechFest team members, who's also an entrepreneur right now, building his own thing, Sri Kumar Nair, he was also part of our core team at TechFest. Robin had spoken to him as well, and he was also keen. So we thought, okay, let's
do something.
And the other part was also, TechFest gets you so occupied for the 8-9 months that after that suddenly there's a void. You don't know what to do. I mean, theek hai, padhai karni hai, there's also placements coming up and all of that is there, but still you feel there's time and I don't know what to do. This looks like an interesting project to work on. It was not a startup at that point in our minds. And back in 2006, startup scene was also not that strong like it is today. So we thought, we're just building something interesting. Let's see how it goes. And we started building, and again, benefit of being in IIT Bombay, companies were coming to hire for jobs as well as for internships. We were also sitting for placements, so we would go to their pre-placement talks, listen to that, then come out and pitch them. We had a brochure, etc. हमारे platform पे आप register कर लो, get interns. I mean, campus से तो you can get it directly, but other campuses also, colleges also, we have so many students who have signed up. So please register. Being IIT Bombay, and it was not something that was paid at that time. We just wanted people to kind of sign up and see. So a lot of them said yes. So we had like Googles and the Yahoos and all the large companies would come to campus as companies would sign up on India Interns to get interns. And on the other side of the platform, we had students signing up because they wanted to intern at good places. So that's how India Interns got really started. In 2006, we were still in our final year. Yeah, we did that for a few months. Then there was a business plan competition happening. Again, not so common in those days. A business plan competition happening where a US-based company was doing something. They had an India office also. So the India office was doing this. And they had this thing that we are doing a pan-India business plan competition. Whoever wins gets 25 lakhs in funding and they can build their business. So we entered that competition, eventually ended up winning it. And this was by the time we had already gotten placed, 2007, early 2007. And then we told them, I went to the job that I'd gotten. There was also a boutique consulting firm where I eventually joined. The founders were they were entrepreneurs themselves. So I told them that I've got this thing and I want to join, go and build this. So I'll not be able to join your company. And they were super chill about it. Ki, "Bhaiya, karo jaake." So that's when we decided to kind of go full time on it. Later, things did not pan out how we had thought. In a very short period of time, maybe 2-3 months, we kind of were not sure that should we be doing this or not. There was also not the right kind of advice available at that point about, so we knew how to build product, but we didn't know how to build a company. So everything from how to register a company, how does the equity work, how does the investment work, we didn't have a lot of advice available. And we kind of got a bit unsure about doing this. Should we even go about doing it? And at that point, we kind of decided that we're not going ahead this route and we'll take up our jobs. Thankfully, I founders, Pankaj and Purnima, I called them back saying, "Sir, this is not working. Do I have my job offer still open?" They said, "Koi dikkat nahi, aa jaao." And then I ended up working 3.5 years with them.
और वो 25 लाख रुपए का क्या करा?
तो 25 लाख रुपए के साथ the thing was that you were getting it as a funding. Not as a prize money.
Okay.
So if there was no company, there was no funding. So that 25 lakhs didn't come.
Got it. और 3 साल, हम कंसल्टिंग जानते हैं. ज़्यादातर लोगों के दिमाग में आता है MBB, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. लेकिन एक चीज़ भी होती है बुटीक कंसल्टिंग फर्म, जिसके आप पार्ट थे. ये बुटीक कंसल्टिंग फर्म क्या करती है? How is it different from an MBB?
Your boutique consulting firm, so the founders of INI Consulting, Pankaj was a McKinsey consultant before and then started his own practice. For boutique consulting firms, large consulting firms will do many different kinds of projects. They'll work with very large companies. Boutique consulting firms will focus on certain areas that we do consulting only in this. And they work with the next level of companies who are not willing to go to a McKinsey or a BCG, but want good consulting. And they work with people like INI Consulting, where consultants are from McKinsey background and they know how to do this, but they're also focused on a particular sector and are also not a very expensive option for people. So that is what basically boutique consulting firms are. These are much smaller teams usually focused on a particular sector.
और जो 3 साल आपने काम करा था, Tell us any story about some blunders that you made, some interesting projects that you were a part of.
Yes.
What was the learning curve?
Yeah, consulting was very interesting, and being part of a small firm like this was also great. That so Pankaj basically said that it was because it was a small firm. I was kind of thrown into the deep very early to go work with the clients, and most of the clients at that point we were working with European clients who were looking to enter India. So we were focused on India entry strategy consulting. Usually like German, Swiss clients were there who I had to kind of work with, and
और कौन सा मार्केट में इन द सेंस मतलब कौन किस इंडस्ट्री के लोग थे
I worked in two broadly sectors. One was industrial, I wouldn't say equipment, but industrial sensors, etc. Trying to get into Indian market with Indian industries, railways, etc. And agribusiness was the other big part of what I did, where people are looking to enter Indian market, whether it is from a horticulture perspective or someone looking to set up a juice manufacturing in India, orange juice manufacturing unit. So they would manufacture the concentrate, which will be used by the larger companies to make juice. So those kind of companies, what I worked on. Very early put into the deep end where I had to interact with the client. I'm just out of college. You've put me in front of a Swiss
European
client and like a senior guy, and you've asked me to kind of work with him. And of course, they were there to help, but on a day-to-day interaction, I had to do it on my own, which was initially a bit scary because I didn't know anything. But then I realized that consulting is like that. A lot of times when you get into a project, you don't really know a lot about that project as an analyst level, at least. Of course, the principal and the seniors have deep understanding of that. But as an analyst, you don't usually know. Your job is to come in as a third person, an outsider, to look at whatever is going on and then kind of drive insights out of things that people who are working on it on a day-to-day basis could not see because they're so entrenched into it. So you come in as a third perspective, use some problem solving thinking and use some frameworks to kind of break down the problem that you're trying to solve and come up with fresh insights. That was what it was about, which I of course eventually learned. But initially jab hua to I was so that was a learning point, if you say. That was a great experience, and also it was a lot of fun because consulting at that, I mean, consulting in general is usually a lot of travel. You're wearing suits all the time. For a fresher out of college, it is all like maza, right? It's the fancy things. You get to fly a lot. You get to fly business class at times to stay in 5 stars. It was all like very interesting to fancy stuff for the first couple of years. But the very interesting part was to kind of be able to come up with insights which the client is going to see value in and say that this is good. At that age of like 21, 22, where you initially are doubting yourself a lot, that what do I know about this? But then you end up figuring something out or doing something which the client appreciates, is of course gives you a lot of confidence, a lot of kick initially that okay, I can do things, which I think subconscious mind, it plays a big role that you get a lot of confidence that कर सकते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है, मतलब we can do things.
And did you build some framework, some problem solving understanding or framework during those days, which helped you later also?
A lot of things that I did at that time helped me. As part of some of these projects, like one project where I was helping industrial sensor manufacturer to figure out sales in India. I had to work with a lot of like auto manufacturers in India, railway in India, to figure out how to sell to them. Lots of learnings around how to sell, what doesn't work, how selling works in a private company versus a government institution. So lots of learnings around that. for some companies, I also built a complete business plan for them to enter into India. So the juice manufacturing setup I spoke about, we actually created a complete detailed business plan of what kind of investment they'll need to make, what kind of projections can be made, what would be the supply chain that they need to look at, where do they were looking to manufacture orange juice.
So source कहाँ से करेंगे?
Source कहाँ से करेंगे, and where do they set up the factory, factory setup, production, where would they sell. So a lot of like complete business planning, made a complete Excel model for all projections and everything. All of that something that I've done multiple times over years for the startups that I've tried building, and how do I plan those things upfront. So on a regular basis, I do that. A big skill that I learned at that time, two big skills that I learned at that time were Excel and PowerPoint. For consultants, that's your must, the toolkit that you need. But that continues to help me how to think about, in terms of presentation, not just how to use a tool, but how to distill your ideas into a few slides, which can convey a story to someone who doesn't have any clue about what you are going to say. Helps. Now I mostly make presentations for fundraising, but within the company also, if I have to kind of talk to the team about something that we're trying to do, or fundraising, I have to talk about the idea, the user. How do we make an interesting story and presentation? From the storyboarding to landscaping of whatever you're trying to do. All of that skills that I learned during my consulting days.
और उसके बाद you went to ISB, और इससे पहले आपने एक और startup करा था. You joined the founders of INI.
So we were doing a lot of agri consulting. That's when they figured there's an opportunity in agri sector.
Which was?
On the farming side. So we got into horticulture farming. Growing pomegranates for exports is where it started. The idea, of course, again, I did the business plan for that initially. The idea was to start with pomegranates and then go to other crops over years from an export point of view. That was called INI Farms, which is where then during my INI days, last 1.5 years of my 3.5 years in IIT, in INI was focused on INI Farms. From writing the business plan to setting up the first farm to hiring the first team, all of that. So that was there.
And how did you figure out that pomegranate हम यहाँ पर produce करके foreign market को
So of course, how and why pomegranate, I can tell you what is the thought process behind that. Was not completely mine, of course. It was Pankaj who had decided, Pankaj and Purnima who had decided that we want to get into horticulture and pomegranate is the crop, because they had a lot of experience exporting horticulture from India, fruits from India, with the consulting assignments they had done before. But the interesting thing about, farming in general is cyclic. There is a season for every crop. And then there is a shelf life of every crop. Then eventually there's a price that you can get. So a lot of factors like these. When you're trying to do it at a large scale, for an individual farmer, they can do a lot of things. But when you're trying to do it at a large scale, you need to have something which is you can't have कि मेरा business सिर्फ 3 महीने बेचने का है, 9 महीने सिर्फ
खाली बैठूंगा,
या मतलब सिर्फ खर्चा होने वाला है, and that's not the ideal way to do business. So we had to figure out a crop which can be a perennial crop, not a perennial but year-round crop,
right?
That we could get, जिसमें हम production पूरे साल ले सकते हैं. So pomegranate is one such crop where you can plan the harvest in most of the months through the year. Then you also have a very good shelf life of pomegranates. If you can figure out the cold storage part of it quickly, there's a very good shelf life. Pomegranate is also, at least at that point, I'm not sure how the market is today, but back then it was also a crop which would be very high value in the global markets. Even in India, it was an expensive fruit. Global markets were a very high value product because of its nutritional values and everything. And it also looks very beautiful if it's got the crown and all. So those were few factors which kind of led to that we should go for pomegranate. And in fact, the projections that we had were also crops which would have this kind of economics playing. So banana is another crop where you can do a lot of these things well. It's not the expensive crop, but in terms of the farming, you can do banana also in a way where you can get harvest in a lot of months. And I think pineapple is another crop like that. Eventually, they did a lot of those and more. INI farms over there now 14, 15 years.
INI Farms is still on?
It's still there. INI Farms got acquired by AgroStar, I think,
Okay.
2019. Till that time, it was independent. Now it's part of AgroStar, but INI Farms exists as an independent entity doing the exports.
And then there is a lot of premium also because you're exporting, so you'll get the best quality of fruits.
Yeah.
In fact, I've also heard जैसे कोई भी नमकीन होती है तो नमकीन का जो पहला कोई भी ऑयल होता है जो उसमें से जो पहला वो निकालते हैं बैच निकालते हैं वो सारा एक्सपोर्ट कर देते हैं प्रीमियम पे और जो इंडिया में देते हैं वो साला तीसरा चौथा पांचवा बैच होता है एंड द फ्रूट साइजेस आर आल्सो स्मॉल.
But India may be now with the premium retail, even in the F&B space going up, you have, so their brand is called Kimai. You would find Kimai in the supermarket chains across India, you'd find it. So now they have got a decently large premium segment in India also, where the export quality stuff.
But the top cities only, Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, all.
Not, I mean, it's purely the market dynamics where they can get the right price for. There are a lot, I mean, one is so from a quality perspective, one is the quality that normal consumer would understand with respect to the taste and how it looks and all of those things. But there's also, from an export point of view, residue levels, making sure that the chemicals usage is very less and the residues are very low, under the maximum permissible limits. All those things are maintained when you're growing things for export, because those markets are more peculiar about that. So if you send something, just completely discard हो जाते. Completely, you can't enter this country if it's on the port itself. It will get tested, and if it does not meet the requirement, destroy नहीं करते हैं. इस केस में destroy नहीं होता है, but इस केस में they'll send it back.
अच्छा.
So you figure out what to do with it. I mean, from a global market perspective, there are some other markets where that will be acceptable, but there's a big loss to the seller because value eventually वहाँ मिलनी थी, transport cost आपकी लग चुकी है. Now you have to send it somewhere else. That transport cost is also going to be there, and you'll probably fetch lower price in the other markets. So from that perspective, growing high quality fruits is very there are many other things to it, which a lot of times in Indian context, now it's the awareness growing so much more, but in the Indian context, it was not that big at that time. That people were not too keen on knowing कि ये
organic है क्या, pesticides.
Organic नहीं, but pesticides तो use हुई हैं, but what are the residue levels? Is it right for consuming, etc. वो उतना keen India में नहीं थे, तो they were also not willing to pay the price for it.
और अभी भी नहीं है मेरे हिसाब.
अभी भी कम है, but awareness definitely has gone up. People are now more conscious about what they are eating. That's where organic is also kind of becoming more relevant, and these pesticide-free things are also.
And what was this thing called residue levels? What is residue level?
So when you apply any pesticide, a lot of times you see on social media videos saying इस fruit को इस तरह से wash करके आप उसका pesticide हटा सकते हैं. That is only removing the pesticide that's on the surface.
जो under absorb
जो absorb हो गया उसको आप नहीं निकाल सकते धो के.
कैसे निकालोगे? हाँ.
So what happens is every chemical that gets sprayed on the crop has a residue in terms of over time it will get released out from the fruit. उसका एक टाइम है, हर एक केमिकल का एक डिफाइंड टाइम है कि ये केमिकल को 90 दिन लगते हैं, केमिकल को 60 दिन लगते हैं, whatever.
तब तक कंज्यूम नहीं करना चाहिए.
तब तक वो कंज्यूम नहीं करना चाहिए, तब तक वो हार्वेस्ट भी नहीं होना चाहिए. या तो दैट इज व्हाट इज रेसिड्यू लेवल, which is the residue that you get once the harvest is done.
Right.
What is the residue level, or when the crop reaches, the fruit reaches the buyer, when they test it, they'll test कि इसमें chemical levels कितना है, and there's a list of some 400-500 chemicals which have certain defined limits. उससे ज़्यादा होगा तो it's not allowed. तो वो जो residue limits हैं, उसके लिए you have to plan at the farming stage कि ये chemical इस date के बाद apply नहीं होगा. अगर इस date के बाद apply हुआ तो residue आएगा. So that is the kind of planning that goes into like growing high quality export fruits, that you have everything scheduled. ये chemical इस date को होगा, ये chemical इस date को होगा. Normally जो small farmers होते हैं इंडिया में, I don't know how it is globally, but the moment you have slight chances of rain like what we have today, which is not an expected time for rain, they'll go on and spray because rain होने से they'll lose their crop completely,
right.
because of the pests and everything. So they will spray so that pest नहीं होगा. They'll save the crop, but the chemical residue that you'll get in will be very high. But then consumer also is not aware of it and doesn't care in a lot of sense. So they are consuming it anyway because the taste is good and the crop is good, etc. But residue levels are high. So उसके लिए बहुत सारी planning पहले लगती है, which is what INA Farms was doing or other companies like that in this field are doing. And they get involved at that stage to make sure that the output is the right quality.
You have a 8-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
अब जब आप मार्केट में फ्रूट्स लेने जाते हो, सिंस यू नो दिस, यार जनरली हम कहीं पर भी कुछ खरीदते हैं तो हम ठेले वालों से खरीदते हैं. आर यू अब नाउ डू यू फील कॉन्शियस इनफ कि यार अगर मैं यहाँ से कुछ ले रहा हूँ तो इसका क्या रेजिड्यू लेवल होगा या इसमें क्या पेस्टिसाइड डाला होगा? आर यू वरीड अबाउट व्हाट यू आर ईटिंग एंड व्हाट यू आर कंज्यूमिंग एट होम विद योर फैमिली?
I am definitely worried, but unfortunately I still don't have many options to kind of. So the moment someone comes and says we are growing something organic, we like want to try it. कि भाई आप दे दो. There's lack of trust on that as well, because organic is also, especially since I've been in the field, I know what organic really means in terms of like when do you call something organic, which I'm not sure if everyone who is selling organic is following all of that. But we still think that kuch to better hi hoga, so maybe go for that. But remains a challenge. I mean, you eventually have to buy what is available and trust on whoever is selling. But remains a challenge.
And what's your definition of organic?
So organic, whatever I had studied at that time about how organic farming works, the one part is no application of pesticides and fertilizers, also no chemical fertilizers being used, etc. But even to get started into organic farming, there are regulations with respect to how this land was used before.
Because it takes some 3 years or 4 years for the land to get out of that chemical.
All that chemicals that are there. तो वो 3-4 साल 5 साल का जो regulation requirement है, is that being followed or not? या हमने land ले ली, अब हम जो कर रहे हैं वो organic है, पर पहले क्या हुआ मुझे पता नहीं.
इतना सारा chemical है.
So a lot of those kind of things are that I don't know if people are following to the extent that is required. And organic का भी ऐसे कोई बहुत strong certification setup है नहीं अभी इंडिया में, where you could, at least that I know of, where you could say कि यार ये certificate मिल गया मतलब सब कुछ check है. Which happens globally, for example, when you're exporting fruits, there are a couple of certifications. I think there's something called GAAP GAP certification for crops that are exported. You have to get the GAP certification, which then ensures that there are all of these check boxes done. In other industries also, like I spent a lot of time in palm oil industry in Jakarta, in Indonesia. There's something called RSPO, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil. वहाँ पे chemical से ये वाला problem उतना बड़ा नहीं है, but it is the sustainability part around the rainforests and the habitat there for animals, birds, etc. Even people. वहाँ पर भी certification है. So once you've got the certification, buyer knows कि ये चीजें check हो चुकी हैं, so you can trust it. That kind of thing is not that actively available.
और जब आप ये pomegranate बेचते थे तो सबसे बड़ा मेजर कंट्री कौन सा था एक्सपोर्ट?
Europe. It will go to basically Netherlands. Netherlands is from where I think Rotterdam port ही जाता था, I think. From where it will go into other parts of Europe. So that is where the major import of fruits happens. Then we would also sell to UAE, like Dubai and other countries.
और सबसे high standards I'm believing Europe के होते होंगे.
Europe.
और फिर then after long 3 year stint, you decided to go for an MBA.
Right.
And then 2011, if I'm not wrong.
11, 12, yeah.
कोई ऐसी केस स्टडी जो आपने 90% इट्स केस स्टडी, राइट?
Right.
कोई ऐसी केस स्टडी जो आपने बाद में अपने बिजनेसेस में लगाई, जो आपने पढ़ी होगी वहां पर, या सर्टेन लर्निंग, सर्टेन थिंग्स दैट हैपेंड एट ISB व्हिच शेप्ड योर बिजनेस अंडरस्टैंडिंग?
जस्ट ट्राइंग टू थिंक कि केस स्टडीज मुझे कौन सी याद हैं, बहुत टाइम हो गया है. So there are areas of things that I learned which I like. So I majored in strategy and finance at ISB. Finance was not something that I wanted to major in because I wanted to get in finance field. So major करने का usual ये होता है, you take credits like courses, each course has a credit, जिसके ज़्यादा credit है आपका उसमें major हो जाता है. Strategy is something that I wanted to do because I had the consulting background and I was kind of thinking that that's something that I'd do. उसके अलावा I was just picking up courses where I thought this looks interesting and this may not be something that I'll be able to learn on my own later, which ended up being a lot of finance courses where I thought कि हाँ थोड़ा structured learning चाहिए, and after I get into the job probably not be able to learn a lot there. So, and being an engineer, had little exposure to that before. So a lot of those things which I learned there, whether it was how venture capital works or how do you do companies valuation, how do you read financial statements, all of those things are something that
You picked up from there.
I picked up from there because that's where I learned these things. And then over time, I used them multiple times to get a hang of how those things worked. At that point, it was still a little more academic for me because I was learning it for the first time. Had a little bit of exposure from my consulting time, but not so much on the finance side. So that's something that remains an area which I specifically learned in ISB and continue to use here. I did a bunch of courses on entrepreneurship project also in entrepreneurship there, which had a lot of learnings around things that we are building today, we're using. But yeah, I mean, I think from an academic perspective, this was where I would think my major learnings were, which I constantly use.
Were there any other highlights or things that you did at ISB which kind of were interesting, or some stories?
So the courses that I did around entrepreneurship were very interesting, and learned a lot of things with respect to how to think about a new market, how to go about planning and different things. There's also an interesting exercise that was done in one of those courses. You'll be asked to make a team of 2 or 3 people. You'll get 1,000 rupees. You'll get a week. You have to make more money, like make how much you can make from that, and come back and the end of that week as part of the course. So we got 1,000 rupees in trying to figure out different things ki kya kar sakte hain. I think we were a bit lazy also about it. Ended up decent overall, but we were lazy about it that we didn't do a lot of things in that week. We were just thinking ki kya kare. Some people did very interesting things. What we ended up doing was we, on a very short notice, it was also, I think, Navratri going on at that time, and there's no dandiya happening on our campus. ISB campus is known for its parties. We were like, dandiya bhi to hona chahiye.
Beaching dandiya.
So we just basically planned a dandiya evening for the campus. From dandiya, getting dandiya to getting music to getting place set up and the decoration done and everything. We had 1,000 rupees to do all of that. I don't think we, then that's where we learned we did not learn probably, but we used the idea that a lot of things can be done on credit, so we don't have to pay people. We have 1,000 rupees only, but we'll pay them once we've made money we were selling tickets for the party. So we had done that. We got food stalls, got some money from them to set up the food stall there, and planned an evening. Project था थोड़ा engineer style में हो गया था last moment. But it was a good, quick thing that we did, and I think from that 1,000 rupees, we made some 10,000 rupees revenue. And
do you remember your favorite professor at ISB?
He was a strategy professor, Professor Kale.
Professor Prashant Kale.
Professor Prashant Kale. He was amazing. Yeah. Amazing. His strategy classes were the way he would discuss the cases and some of those things were very, very interesting.
He won the teacher.
I think many times.
Yeah.
Many times. Our batch also, he was
Teacher of the year.
Teacher of the year. It's amazing.
And Professor Bhagwan Chaudhary was still
Was
there?
also there. I did not study the course with him, but he was there. Professor Bhagwan Chaudhary was there.
Just getting उसके बाद ISB के बाद after getting out, what was the scenario for you?
So when I was in ISB, I had no plans of actually going out of India. While applying for MBA schools also, I'd only applied for Harvard, like other than ISB, because I did not want to go out at that point, but Harvard was like a dream school. So I like Harvard apply to karunga. Didn't get through eventually, but so was not planning to go out. But on campus, there was a company that came initially, which I eventually joined, Goodhope Asia, came in for a role for their Malaysia office. But when I was interviewing for them, because of my INI experience and the farming experience that I had with INI farms and the consulting experience in agri, they liked my profile for a different role, which they had not come for originally. But that was an open role they had in Jakarta, Indonesia. So they offered me that role, saying that the role that you applied for, we're not looking for that one for you, but this other one where you get to work with the COO of the company. So, I mean, the role was called Manager Operations something, but it was more of a EA to COO kind of a role. That COO has a bunch of things to do, and he wants someone to come in and kind of do work with him and help him out on that. So that's how I got into that company. I was very skeptical about going to Indonesia. Honestly, I didn't know much about Indonesia at that time. And I was not sure like what kind of country is it. But I spoke to the people in the organization and they had lots of good things to tell me about. And I didn't know anyone who was working in Indonesia at that time. I know a few people now, but at that time I did not know. So I was very skeptical. But eventually it turned out a great decision. I mean, I enjoyed living in Jakarta.
But that role in Indonesia, did you feel some cultural shock?
It was a big culture shock.
What happened?
Not so much because of, I mean, there was a part of working in a different country, but culture shock in the sense that, so one, when you've gone out of India, in the new organization, and they're hiring practically for the first time from India, and there's no context of whatever I've done before. So they don't know IIT. I mean, they may know, but it's not like, you know, in India, when you have IIT degree, there's certain credibility that comes along. They don't know ISB. They came to ISB to hire, but like for them, it's a school, good school. Someone said कि यहाँ जाके hire कर सकते हो. And जो hire करने वाले थे, उनको शायद पता था IIT ISB, but the people who I was eventually going to work with, they didn't know what these things are. And suddenly you are put in a place. Now, so far you've come with a career where people kind of have some understanding of where you're coming from. Now you're in a role where whatever you've done before is gone, be fresh hai. And people I was working with are all like, because I was EA to the, or like in that role where I was working with the CEO and the top management in the Jakarta office, they were all largely 50 plus. And they had, like literally they had as much experience in their field as my age was. And I was a complete outsider to the industry. Palm oil I had no clue about. So it took me a while to figure my, make my place in that setup, to say that what I say has some value. Even though I'm not as experienced as you are, even though I'm not from the industry, but what I bring in has some value. It took me a while to kind of establish that self, that which probably would have been easier in a different setup, let's say in India, where people would give in some credibility to whatever I've done before. So that was kind of a immediate this thing that you've come with a lot of, it kind of grounded me a little that अभी your work is going to speak. Whatever you've done before is not of going to be much value. वो यहाँ job लगने तक था valuable, which was a good thing as well as was a bit of a shock initially. From a country perspective, there was definitely a culture shock in multiple things, positive as well as kind of negative. In India, the hustle culture is very strong in India. Right. But when you go into a country like Indonesia, people are very
relaxed.
I wouldn't say relaxed, but they're happy in themselves. They're happy where they are. They're not going to be hustling like we do in India. So they have the office timings were 8 to 5 there. So after 5, you can't ask anyone to do anything. Like 5 means 5. They'll tell you that we'll do tomorrow. You give them something at 4:30. They'll try till 5. After that, they'll see, बाकी मैं कल करूँगा. It's not like कि you have to finish like it is in India कि 6 बजे तक 7 बजे तक बैठे to kind of get that. So to get work done from someone who's that kind of mindset, and across the organization it was like that, at least for people from Jakarta, from Indonesia. But it's also the other part of like, it kind of gave me the other perspective that these people value their own personal life also very high, that they'll say work is important, but it's not everything for me. So I'll do my work, I'll do the best that I can in that period. After that, you should not be expecting, which was also kind of for me a little bit of a culture shock ki, matlab aisa kaise, if someone said you should be doing it. But then I realized this is also important, and until that point, I had just gotten married just before ISB. So for us, it was, the family part was not that big. Abhi tak to bachelor the, we were used to of ki office mein ghisana is part of how things work. But this was kind of a different view for me. A lot of other things also. I mean, Indonesia was a very good experience. It was a nice country to live in.
Tell me 3 good things and 3 bad things about Indonesia, or the cultural aspect that you were mentioning.
So one, people are like very, very good people, very polite and satisfied in themselves. So that will come across in how they interact with others also. You will not see aggression usually. People are very patient, even on the streets. There's a lot of traffic. If you ask anyone about Jakarta, they'll say traffic is too bad. Too bad in the sense that so many vehicles on the road. But if you have the context of traffic in India, you'll feel कि ये लोग कितना patience में चला रहे हैं गाड़ी. Everyone's following the lane. There's no honking. Because I feel inherently people are very patient, very nice people, and very respectful towards everyone. So that was like one great part of living in Indonesia. The sense of service is also very strong. Towards anything. So if they're selling you something, if they're giving you any kind of service, they believe that they have to put in everything. So if you look at their hospitality industry, you'll find the experience amazing, because the people there, they'll put everything into their job and they take it very, very seriously, irrespective of what they do in the whole chain of things. There's no sense of this is a low job, this is a high job. This is my job and I'm going to give the best to it. So you experience that across the hospitality industry, even other interactions also, whether you're buying something in a shop or interacting with any other people, you will see that kind of dedication towards what they're doing.
You were saying there were certain bad things also. What were certain bad things about?
So I won't say the bad things, but I mean, for example, the work part that I spoke about, you feel a little this thing कि यार काम होना चाहिए तो काम priority पे वैसे होना चाहिए, which is something that you feel at times from a work perspective कि ये नहीं हो रहा है. But I honestly don't have a lot of things that I would say were bad. My experiences were
any incident that happened with you there, which you will never forget.
Many such incidents, but usually around travel. So when I went there, I had a car given from the company.
With a driver?
With a driver, because they would advise you to not drive. And a few things they said was traffic is too bad and there's so many vehicles and like, but then, and first couple of months I thought I should not. Everyone saying I should not. But remember, all people in my company were either in the senior management were either from Malaysia or Sri Lanka. It was a Sri Lanka headquartered company, and so Malaysia and Sri Lankans were there. So then I kind of thought that where they are coming from, it may feel a bit difficult to drive here, but I'm coming from Bombay. When I was on the road with the driver, I could feel that I don't find anything odd here. This looks like great place to drive. So I then eventually got a license and started driving. So on one of these, and then we started driving out of the city as well for short trips around, and we went on a trip, and on the way there, we kind of lost our way. We were going through Google Maps, and at that point, language was also very limited understanding, and ended up following a route where we went into someone's farm. Basically, it was a farm road, and we realized we are inside a coconut farm, and there's just one single road, and it's going nowhere. And it was also getting dark, and it was me, my wife, and a friend, and we thought there's no way, we'll have to stop and ask someone. So we stopped near a house, we saw a man, in the broken bhasa that we could speak, we told him that this is where we are trying to get to, but we don't know, we are lost. He said, okay, follow me. And now I think back, we did not even have a second thought on should we follow this guy. Maybe living few months in Indonesia, we had a feeling that people are nice. So we just followed. He took his bike, we just followed him. He said, I'll, like, whatever in broken English that he could tell us, that I'll take you. And we just followed him. He took us to the place where we were actually going to. It was a small kind of guest house that we had booked. Another thing that happened in that trip itself, I was backing up my car and had not seen a tree behind and broke the glass. So पीछे का पूरा glass टूट गया. Our trip is still 1 day left, but we thought let's go ahead anyway. We went to another place where we had to go the next morning. Glass was broken, our stuff, bags were all inside. We just parked, and it was near a waterfall, not like a very public place. There was a shop there. We said, we're parking our gadi here. Please take care of our luggage. Now he could, like, the car was practically open.
Right.
But nothing happened. We came back after 2 hours. Everything was like that. So, I mean, many such incidences where when I look back, I think maybe we were too adventurous, and we should not have done those things.
Too gullible, but yeah.
But the other part is the people gave us that confidence that we can do these things and not be worried about safety and other things.
Interesting. Second thing you mentioned about कि आपके आसपास के लोग सारे 50 साल के ऊपर थे, majority of folks, and you had a hard time establishing the value of your work, right? If some people are in that position, and it may happen, what will be 3 actionable insights or advice that you would give to them?
One is it can be daunting, but don't be scared to put yourself out there with respect to your views about things that you're seeing. They may not be right always, but don't think that maybe what I'm saying is dumb or not relevant.
Don't hold your back.
Don't hold yourself back.
Okay.
Have confidence in whatever thinking analysis that you've done about whatever you're going to say, and have confidence on that. And then go ahead and say. Sometimes it will actually be dumb, but that's fine. People will tell you that, okay, this is not so valuable. And most of the time people are polite, so they'll tell you politely that this is not of value. But when it is of value, they'll immediately notice that, okay, this guy has something to say. And next time when you say, they'll listen. So it will have to happen a few times when they start saying that, now if he's saying something I need to listen to. But have confidence in yourself. Don't hold back just because you think they may know more. They would know a lot more about a lot of things, but the perspective that you can bring to a lot of things will be fresh because they can't see it. That happens every time, and that kind of training came from my consulting days. where I knew that I'm going to be an outsider always, but I will be, having some perspectives based on whatever analysis that I've done, which is backed by something. It's not just a thought that came in my head. It is backed by something that I've seen or done. And so one is, don't hold yourself back. Two is, have patience. It is going to take time. And when kind of people are not putting a lot of value on you, you have to put in the extra effort to be dedicated about your work, to be serious about your work, that they should not be able to question they should not be able to question anything other than your knowledge of the subject, because वो है जो आप अभी नया gain कर रहे हो, but they should not be able to question your dedication, seriousness about what you're trying to do. वो सब पे there should not be any doubt. So make sure that you are do what you say. Don't commit on something and then not do it. Be punctual about things. Some basic things that are important aspects. And I think one more thing which helped me a lot, being an outsider to the industry, ask questions. These people who are, again, you may get intimidated and you may think that what will they think if I ask this question? But most people who are senior, experienced, have the level of maturity, and if you ask questions, they will help you. They'll tell you what they're thinking and what you need to learn, or they'll tell you how to learn. If there are other means to learn some of the basic things about what you're trying to do, they'll definitely help. So don't hesitate asking questions from the people and learn from them.
आपने palm oil industry में काम करा था, right? And there is a lot of first, and now people are getting educated, and they say कि जितने भी हम majority packaged foods देते हैं, उनकी ingredients में first, second या third ingredient में palm oil होता है, and that is very, 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 very harmful for the health. What's the dark side? What's the reality? What's the reality of this palm oil? Because you have worked there, you know the industry in and out, and you have worked exactly there जहाँ से ये सब होता है. And of course there is a lot of political things also associated with, because अभी जैसे चाइना से वो बंद हुआ था तो इंडिया ने इंडोनेशिया वो सब करा था. That's another aspect. But tell us about palm oil.
So the health aspects of it, I'm not an expert on that front, so I'll not be able to tell. My understanding is that it is like any other vegetable oil. Maybe some of the things may be slightly more in this, slightly less in something else, but eventually it is a vegetable oil, like any other, whether it's a sunflower or soya or whatever oil that are there, and it's a processed oil. So whatever the others have a challenge, this is almost the same from that perspective, is what my understanding is. Because I see palm oil, when I was in Jakarta, palm oil was the regular oil being used by people in their cooking. So like we use so many other oils, they would use palm oil for everything, because that was something that grows there. And whatever I know is there's no specific data to say that Indonesia is very high, heart issues, or the things that we relate to the oil or palm oil in the context that we're talking. So my understanding is these are not very different. Maybe slightly, if I had to put it, maybe slightly worse, but I'm not an expert on that. So largely same. The amazing part of palm oil and why I believe it's not going anywhere is for the same per unit land, if I remember correctly, it produces 6 times more oil than any other crop. So to feed the world, you'll need palm oil. As far as people are going to consume oil, you will need palm oil, because the kind of efficient production that you can get for palm oil, no other crop can do that. And there are other aspects of palm oil which had the sustainability issues. I believe those were very big as well, which is deforestation of the rainforests and related problems for the local people, for the local flora, fauna, all of that. That was a problem, maybe still to some degree, But with the global certifications, etc., the RSPO, for example, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, they've put in a lot of things in place to make sure that these things are not, these things are taken care of by the producers, because eventually the world is not going to buy your oil if you are not RSPO certified, and everyone wants to have that sustainability angle to their production. So they are kind of enforcing it onto the companies, which would probably mean that the economics of the palm oil production may get slightly changed, but the fact that it is 6 to 7x more efficient to produce oil than any other crop makes it the crop that is not going to go anywhere. And from a health perspective, my little understanding is it's almost the same. I don't see this to be too big, too harmful, like it gets portrayed a lot. So that's my understanding of palm oil.
It was very insightful, all of these things. But आपने इतना सारा काम करा है एग्रो इंडस्ट्री में और कोई करता नहीं है, तो हमको ये चीजें पता नहीं पड़ रही. So thanks for sharing that. Are there any other insights or interesting facts about agriculture, about palm oil, about pomegranate, or anything from your days which the normal world, people like us, doesn't understand or don't know, which is very fascinated?
So the fascinating part for me to look at palm oil industry after agri industry in India was the scale of farming and then the problems related to it. So in India, usual farm size is less than a hectare per farmer. The land piece that one farmer would be doing is less than a hectare.
The reason for that is the Hindu succession and दादाजी के पास 100 एकड़ जमीन थी, फिर 4 बच्चे हो गए, फिर उनके बच्चों के पास और बढ़ गई, तो जो एवरेज लैंड है वो बहुत छोटी है.
And there are also rules around in India where holding a large parcel also is difficult. Even as a corporation, if you want to do that, it's difficult. That's why in India, you have a lot more of contract farming than like companies holding large land pieces. So in India, the context of, even when I was doing INI farms, the context of farming was 50 एकड़ का farm है, 100 एकड़ का farm है, is like a big farm. And we're still talking in acres. The moment I go to Indonesia, they don't talk acres, they talk hectares, which is already 2 point something times. And they talk tens of thousands of hectares one go. So the company that I was part of had, I think, over 100,000 hectares in farming and almost the same amount more available to be farmed over a period. And उस 1 लाख हेक्टेयर में से भी about 20-25,000 hectares was one contiguous piece. So like you go on the road, यहाँ से लेके वहाँ तक सब अपना ही है type से. And that will practically have, so the number of people who would work in that particular farm will practically be a village living inside who work only in this farm. And like the whole, all the people work as part of this workforce. And it is like that big, and the problems are, India mein, most of the times the problems that we talk about are this particular pest, this particular disease happening which is affecting the crop. Palm oil is a very mature crop, has been there for a long time and has been in kind of industrial farming for a very long period. So a lot of these problems are already addressed. There's no new pest coming in or new disease coming in more often. Their problems are related to scale. कि 20,000 हेक्टेयर में किस कोने में क्या प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, how do we know that? So they are doing things with that as the base. So a lot more mechanization, a lot more technology in place to manage this kind of scale is one big difference that I saw when I went from India farming to the Indonesia farming landscape. Yeah, I mean, other than that, like palm oil as a crop is very interesting. There's hardly any waste from palm oil process.
सब कुछ काम आ जाता है.
सब कुछ काम आ जाता है. Everything has, like, once you've got the crude palm oil, the waste that you get gets used for animal feed production, and the wastewater that's going to come out is going to get used to produce biogas, and that biogas gets used back in the same because you have a 20,000 hectare. There's so much electricity requirement. The biogas gets consumed there itself. The dry material that gets left out of the oil production process goes back into the oil production process as a fuel used in the furnaces to kind of heat the thing. So there's no real waste of that industry. Very interesting for me.
And were there any interesting tools? जैसे बहुत सारे ड्रोन्स भी आज वेजिटेशन इंडिया की बहुत सारी चीजें कर लेते हैं ड्रोन से, वो दे मैप द फील्ड, दे सी कि कुछ इन्फेस्टेशन हो रहा है या समथिंग, एंड हम टीवी पे बहुत सारी चीजें देखते हैं जो बड़ी बड़ी मशीन्स होती है, एवरीथिंग इज ऑटोमेटेड. वर देयर इज इंटरेस्टिंग पीस ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी इज यूज्ड इन दीस बिगर फार्म्स जो आपको लगता है यार ये इंडिया में जरूर होना चाहिए था?
So mechanization in case of agriculture is very specific to crops also a lot of times.
Right.
So palm oil being a certain kind of crop allows for a lot of mechanization which may not be possible, let's say, in a pomegranate farm. So palm oil tree is like very tall, 20 feet, 30 feet kind of tall, and distance between two palm oil trees is also high because of the size of the tree. So you can easily move a very large tractor or machinery inside it to do a lot of things, which is not possible, let's say, in case of a pomegranate farm. So technology-wise, there are a lot of things. In fact, back when I was there, that time drones had started coming up as an agriculture use case, and we also explored a couple of drone companies. I don't know if they use it now or not, but for mapping the field, as I said, 20,000 hectare hai. How do you identify which area needs some special attention? So they'll do a mapping, and then based on the color difference that they'll spot, यहाँ पे yellowing ज़्यादा दिख रही है, this area needs more attention, then there'll be a special ground force that will be assigned to that to figure out and then address that. So that kind of thing had started that time. Whenever they're going to start setting up a new farm, they are not plains that you're farming in, they're all hilly areas a lot of times. So they'll do a topography mapping to figure out where can we farm, what is allowed with respect to the guidelines that you can't go very close to the stream. So all of that planning a lot of times gets done through, before drone they were using satellite images. So there'll be agencies who will come and give them satellite images and they'll do that. But satellite images के साथ problem ये थी कि cloudy हो गया तो image clear नहीं आई. They're usually slightly a few days older images, they're not real time. Drones made it real time and clouds वगैरह का effect नहीं आ रहा था वहाँ पे. We were also exploring at one point application of some pesticides, etc. using, there was mechanization on ground, but maybe drone से क्या हो सकता है possible, उस type का भी explore कर रहे थे. On ground mechanization तो बहुत ज़्यादा है खैर उस industry में, from harvesting to fertilizer application to everything.
And this drone application you were seeing back in
13-14.
और ये same चीज अब हो रही है इंडिया में?
हाँ, इंडिया में अब लोग explore कर रहे हैं. 13. Again, the context is at that kind of scale, one, the problem becomes, the solution becomes a lot more interesting when that kind of scale is available. Economics becomes a lot more feasible when that kind of scale is available. So they'll see these kind of things coming up first there, or any such large farming operations. Even let's say countries like Brazil and US have very large land parcels where they are able to see a lot of the technology coming there first. And I remember talking to, so during one of my projects for Tapp Me, where I was working with a orange company setting up orange juice manufacturing in India, there was a gentleman from Brazil. Brazil is a big orange producer in the world. That gentleman had come here for evaluation. And I was talking to him and he told me that when there is a big pest infestation or something happening, they've even used aeroplanes the small planes to, that was very new for me back in 2008-9 period, that fertilizer application or pesticide application from plane उड़ा दिया, ऊपर से डाल दिया, blanket spraying. So those things were something that will always happen in larger land parcels. In Indian context, they'll always be probably people have tried an Uber kind of model where there's a shared asset amongst multiple people. works very well in case of harvesting of wheat, for example. जो बड़े harvesters होंगे, you would have seen on the roads in especially Haryana, Punjab, you will see big harvesting machines, like giant machines. They are basically that model, that they'll go on a per acre basis or something, they will charge and they'll do the harvesting for your field. So they'll come in, एक दिन में आपका पूरा field harvest करके crop दे देंगे, you pay them, and that is a shared asset. वो घूमता रहता है, harvester है और वो सब जगह करते रहता है, but not many crops allow that kind of thing to be done that easily. Wheat etc. you can do that.
Let's come to the Tapp Me journey. इसके just बाद, what got you to India to start Tapp Me? Because you came back to start.
Yeah. So I had already spent about 3 years in palm oil in Indonesia, and I was also itching back to, as I said, when I was in ISB, the plan was not to go outside India. I wanted to come back to India always. So even when we went, the idea was, let's say 2-3 years, we come back. So that was always at the back of the mind. And I was thinking that what could be the opportunities in India. First, of course, was agri for me to look at, because I had a lot of background in that, to see what's happening in agri. At that point, this is 2014-15 when I started looking at it, agri startups was not still, startup scene for agri was not really there. Maybe 1 or 2 companies probably starting around that time. But startup scene was not there as strong as it is today for agri. So the only options for me in agri were larger corporates, maybe a Godrej or some of the bigger companies. But I was not very keen on that. And having been in startups or in smaller setups before the Indonesia stint, I was also clear that I enjoy that more than a large setup. This company in Indonesia was like 16,000 people and like a really large company. I also realized that I enjoy the smaller setups more. So I was thinking that something in startups, but honestly at that point I was thinking I'll join some startup, I'll figure out how to get here. And the excitement around the Indian startup was also, honestly, I had FOMO sitting outside there. There's so much happening here and I'm missing out on that. I need to be part of it. So was exploring different things, and then at that point I met someone in Indonesia who eventually were the investors in Tapp Me. In a different context, I met them in a different context, and we talked about a few things, and we ended talking about startups, and they said we are also keen on doing something in this. They're a large company, but they wanted to do something, and we spoke, and then we kind of figured that there is a problem that we both align on, which is around, at that point, the government had changed 2014, and there was a lot of discussion around Skill India movement, and I kind of had thoughts around that there's something that we can do. There's so many people who will help with this, and can we do something there? And we aligned on that, and then the idea of Tapp Me kind of evolved from there. The idea initially was to train people and under the Skill India movement, and we realized that a lot is happening already from the government side with respect to skilling, but after people get skilled, they have to again come back to the same market because they don't have opportunities, especially in the segment, that the blue collar segment that we were kind of thinking about, the electricians, plumbers, and that segment. So we thought there should be something more organized in terms of opportunities for them to come back to the market after their training. So instead of the original thought of doing something in skill development, we thought, let's build a platform where we could get these skilled people. So we work with skilling organizations and hire those people, or like give them a platform.
ITIs or in सबसे government.
ITIs, government. So ITIs and a lot of private companies like
team lease.
not team lease, but so there was, so ILNFS had an arm which was training people. I don't know if they do it now or not. ICICI had a arm where they were training people, blue collar folks. So we worked with these companies, ILNFS, ICICI, ITIs in the local cities, to to not hire these people, but give them a platform where they could get jobs in the Uber model. Ola, Uber is already established, so same model. so we thought of doing that, and in 2015, June, July is when kind of started discussing about this, and then eventually in October I came back to India to start Tapp Me.
How did you meet your co-founders of Tapp Me then?
So Gaurav was my co-founder there. Gaurav also interestingly had met the gentleman that I'm speaking about, who became the investor.
Who was they? Who were they?
So there's a shipping company called Bothra Group. They are based out of India. Visakhapatnam is their India base, and then they have Singapore, Indonesia, multiple company operations. So Gaurav met them in a different context, like I did in India. And
आप उनसे मिले थे इंडोनेशिया में?
मैं इंडोनेशिया में मिला था, and they proposed this to Gaurav as well, that we're trying to do something, would you want to be part of it? And that's how they introduced me and Gaurav, that you guys should speak, and if you guys are aligned, then we can do this together. So that's how I spoke to Gaurav while I was still in Indonesia, and we had a few calls. I came to India in between, we met, and we kind of felt that we can work together. And that's how, Tapp Me got started, and Gaurav and I started working together. Tamanjit, who's our third co-founder in Kaagaz, was the first team member to join Tapp Me as the CTO.
Okay.
So that happened later, a few months after we had started, 3-4 months after we started.
Which year was this?
This was 2015, October is when I came back to India.
Got it. And how much money, if you remember, you had in your bank account while starting Tapp Me? Because one thing, after talking to a lot of founders, they had their basic 6-month survey, 2 years, or something, some backup ready, just say they can, rely.
Right.
And what was the scenario for you?
So,
and also, आप ये मुझे अभी इंडोनेशिया की करेंसी कन्वर्जन भी बता दो.
हाँ. So Indonesia at that time was 1 rupee in India was 200 rupiah, I think.
Rupiah, So Indian currency is much stronger.
Anyway, I used to get my salary in dollars because I was an expatriate there, so I had a dollar salary. So it's not pegged to rupiah per se, but dollar was also kind of dollar that time was growing stronger against it.
But it must be PPP while adjusted, right?
Yeah. That was of course there, but I was getting paid in dollars, and my salary that I negotiated was in dollars. Dollar of course appreciated over time. So I think when I got my job, dollar was at 47, 48. And at one point when I was in Indonesia, dollar had reached 70 odd already. So there was an appreciation on that front because my salary was fixed in dollars, so that there was a benefit there. But so I also had a student loan to pay because ISB was a big loan for me. So I had to pay off that loan.
So 3 साल में आपने चुका दिया?
3 साल में मैंने pay कर दिया था loan. But that also meant that I did not have a lot of money in my bank account when I was coming back. But at the same time, it was not like I had a comfortable a year in the savings easily, a year worth of kind of expenses that I would need. But the other good part was that since we had an investor coming in from day one, it was not zero salary that we came in. So that helped because also at that point we were expecting our daughter. So that was also a big risk from that perspective, that I'm also growing family. There's going to be extra added responsibility. So that was my Tapp Me started in October. My daughter was born in February. So there was that element of risk, but I had like a backup with respect to savings that I had, and there was some salary, sustaining salary at least, that was going to be coming from the funding that we had. So it was not as risky, I would say. Of course, there was a risk and there was an opportunity cost for sure. But I was excited about what I was going to do, and I mean, I understood that money here and there would eventually, we'll figure it out. So that was the situation when I came to India.
And what was the problem that you were trying to solve with Tapp Me? And सबसे पहला जो product था वो क्या था आपका?
So the problem that you were trying to solve, as I said, the first thought was scaling, but then we realized scaling to ho rahi hai. The opportunities are not there for people.
Right.
the other thing that from an industry perspective, what was happening was a lot of companies in this space had already started at that time. 2014, like Urban Clap, House Joy, Task Bob, a bunch of companies had started in the 2014, late 2014 period. So by the time we started, we were about a year late into starting.
So you were direct competitors to them?
In the space, yes, but what we also consciously looked at was we focused on tier 2 India versus tier 1. So these were all in tier 1. Tier 1 as in metros. So they were all in Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, etc. And we decided we'll go to tier 2. So we were in Visakhapatnam, Patna, Jaipur, those markets. We had certain thoughts. Competition was one factor because this space was already crowded. I remember reading one of the reports at that time from Inc. 42 or Your Story or someone, which said there are 400, this space was called hyperlocal services, and hyperlocal services had about 400 companies that had started in that period. Of course, it was not just plumbers and electricians, but beauty and a lot of other segments, laundry, etc., were also started at that time. So we were conscious about the competition because we were about a year late into the market.
So then what was the thesis of the investor?
Right. So the other thought for us was competition was one, but when we did our research, few things that we looked at was, if you look at majority of the workforce in the blue collar space comes from a tier 2 city because they're looking for opportunities which are not available in their city. So our thesis was that if we can give something there itself,
तो इनको ट्रैवल करके आना नहीं पड़ेगा.
हाँ, मैं उनको वहीं हायर कर सकता हूँ या अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पे ले सकता हूँ because they are anyway coming here for that same job because this is where the opportunity is. So if I take the opportunity there, they will not have to travel. I will get someone who will be economically make more sense for us to do in a Patna or a Jaipur versus doing it in Delhi or Bombay because that resource will become expensive. All other expenses around managing a business operationally, whether it is the team that we need to hire and all of that, will become expensive in Delhi versus doing it in Patna. The other part that we had also early on had a strong thesis on was, this is a hyperlocal business. It is going to be, even if I do Delhi, I'll have to break Delhi into Gurgaon, Delhi, Noida, and Gurgaon also sectors. So wo sector level pe hi I'll have to think that this is the hyperlocal that we are serving. I cannot do complete Gurgaon with the same team. So if that is the case, and if I have to break this large market into smaller markets, I might as well go to the smaller market where there is one setup can serve the whole city. The talent is available with respect to the blue collar workforce. Economics works better. And these markets, our thesis was, which I believe was proved right by when we started operations there, these markets are starved for good quality services. There are people who are willing to pay. I don't need the whole city to pay to become my customer to make a viable business. I need a set of power users who will say that I want a high quality service. I'm willing to pay for it. So at that point, as a data point for you, AC service in Gurgaon, I lived in Gurgaon, AC service in Gurgaon was at times cheaper than what someone in Visakhapatnam or a Patna was willing to pay. Or if not cheaper, at par. So people were paying the same amount there, which was also a question that we would get a lot, that tier 2 would not pay and all of those. They will not pay, and this is a thesis that we hold strongly with respect to Kaagaz also. When people say Bharat will not pay, is they are value conscious, not price conscious necessarily. If they find value, they'll pay. But they need to then see very differentiated value. So maybe the benchmark of showing value would be slightly higher for this audience. But if I can show that, they will pay. And which came true in our operations in Visakhapatnam, Patna and Jaipur. People were willing to pay. They were happier to get a service because they were starved for this kind of service in their markets. And it was a relatively more economical operation to run, and we did a lot of different things with respect to marketing. We realized that this is not still a social media kind of like online advertising, online marketing is not the market. This market is not ready. At least back then, it was definitely not ready for online and digital marketing as much for at least these services. For example, we had a very successful thing called a partner program. So what we said was that what is the usual behavior for a person who's looking for a service? They are not going to Google to look for a electrician. They're asking a neighbor, or they're asking the shop nearby कि कोई electrician है तो भेज देना. Now this guy has a footfall already. This guy has got a credibility already because he's been sitting in that market for 20 years. We go and partner with him, saying that आपके पास ये जो request आएगी हमें दे दो, we'll pay you for the request, for whatever leads that you're generating, we'll pay you. And service जो होगी, we'll make sure that they get the best quality service, so it doesn't become a problem for you. And we do a co-branded board with you. So like you have the co-branded boards of Pepsi and Coca-Cola for a Kirana store, we did not specifically restrict ourselves to electrician plumbing shops. Those were partners, but the local photocopy shop also, or printer shop was also, they'll put the board, people will see the board, they'll come and they'll ask, and we'll pay them for. This would get us a booking, like final booking, not just a simple lead, conversion to a booking at 50 rupees, 50 to 60 rupees. While online, like marketing, Facebook, etc., would cost anywhere between 100, 200 rupees kind of scale, while we were able to get this at this. We also introduced another thing where the technicians who were working on our platform, they also had their own network of clients. We said, you bring those also. काम तो वो तुम्हें मिलेगा ही, जो तुम लेके आओगे, you will only do that work, so you will get earning from that. You will also get extra to bring that customer to Tapp Me. So per booking, you will also get something extra there. So these were all in that 50, 60 rupees kind of acquisition cost, which made the economics so much more better in these markets than doing it in larger cities.
Walk me through the first product that you built. First saw blue collar workers कैसे लेके आए और first saw client कैसे लेके आए. What was the story behind that?
Actually, when we started, also being first time founders, in a sense, I had done India Interns, but that was long time back. We thought कि यार tech business बनाने आए हैं, तो technology सबसे पहले लगेगी, तो पहले तो app बनानी पड़ेगी, website बनानी पड़ेगी, सब होगा, उसके बाद launch होगा. We realized कि this is going to take a lot of time, and that's when we kind of maybe got some advice from someone or read something somewhere, and we said, let's launch. We'll figure the tech as we go, but let's launch with a phone number. So we just got a phone number and said, call here to book a service. And Visakhapatnam was our first city. We got a few people. It was largely electricians that we had, and maybe one plumber and one or two other service providers. So 5-6 people is when, and we started kind of doing it, and we started getting a few bookings initial. So that was where we then started learning. We had a basic app for our technicians because we wanted कि ये वाला part जो है ये पूरा tech से होना चाहिए. We should know where the technician is, when is he getting free, how to give him the next booking without coming to office, etc. So we developed that, but बाकी कुछ website और ये सब कुछ नहीं था तब. And then we started learning, and then we realized that the market right now is not ready for complete online booking in these markets. So we focused more on getting our technician app upgraded to make sure that everything is happening smoothly there. But our website and other things came up later.
आप सारी चीज टेक्नोलॉजी से सॉल्व कर दोगे, लेकिन मैंने आपके काम कर दिया, उसके बाद मैं आपको बोलूंगा सर अगली बार आप मेरे को ही बुला लेना. वो प्रॉब्लम कैसे सॉल्व करी थी, और वो प्रॉब्लम हुई होगी आपके साथ भी?
हाँ, वो प्रॉब्लम थी,
रिपीट रेट नहीं हो पाती इस बिजनेस.
वो प्रॉब्लम थी. ये एक्चुअली उतना बड़ा चैलेंज नहीं था. We initially thought it's a very big challenge, but these people had first time worked in somewhat of an organized setup. So what we did was we gave all of them a mobile phone where they can run the app. This is the time when Jio had not yet happened. People did not have smartphones.
Just before that.
And these guys, we gave uniform, as in a t-shirt, which had Tapp Me written on it and all of that. We gave them tools in a lot of cases to work, which they did not have otherwise. And we, in fact, have it like, when we spoke to these technicians, a lot of them said that they now get a lot of respect when they go to a customer's home. Because they're coming from company. So, which they did not have before. So, I remember one technician saying कि सर पहले तो ढंग से बात भी नहीं करते थे, अभी बिठा के पानी पूछते हैं. That kind of respect that they started getting was where people realized कि ये platform से attach होने का क्या फायदा. And of course, their earnings were not getting affected. That is first for them. It was not getting affected. They were able to make the money, and they were getting the respect to do, and they were getting regular work. Was a big push. We were running it as a professional organization. They had, wherever they had worked, it was not that kind of setup. I or Gaurav would regularly travel to the city to meet. We would have a monthly meeting with the local team, every city. And one of us would go to each city and be present. And most of the time we would try to do that. So we gather all of them, we talk to them, we listen to them. This was happening for them for the first time. Their employers never listened to them. They were just told to do things. They were not getting the respect from the customer point of view as well as from their employer's point of view, which is unfortunate, but that was the case. And suddenly they had these things coming in. Someone is listening to them, someone is talking to them. They attach certain this thing that ye company ke founder hai, he is coming in speaking to me. I knew a lot of those people by name, initial people for sure, I knew all of them by name. I had been to their homes. Some of them were, let's say, in Patna, some of them were from Patna. Some of them were from nearby villages who were living in some hostel shared thing. I had gone to their homes. So they were seeing this kind of treatment for the first time in their lives. We had best technician of the month, where we would give a silver coin to the person who would get the best ranking.
वो डिफाइन करता था रेटिंग से.
हाँ, so ratings plus the amount of work that they did, the amount of revenue that they brought in, a few factors put together, we would get one person and we would give them a silver coin. This was all new for them. And they realized that working so much so that the day we had decided to shut down Tapp Me, the B2C part of it, we did B2B for another year. But B2C, the day we decided to shut down, it was a difficult decision for us. There were technicians across the cities who said, "Sir, क्या करना है इसको चलने रहने देने के लिए? What do you need from us? We'll do. We'll run it. आप हम पे वो करके देख लो. अगर आपको कहीं और चैलेंज आ रहा है, let us do it. बंद मत करो. Let us we'll do whatever is required." That was kind of like a big thing for us to say that we were not able to do it for various reasons, but the reason that we started it for, that worked.
आपने कब बंद करा था ये?
B2C हमने 2018 में.
2 साल बाद.
3 साल बाद.
3 साल बाद. किस स्केल पे बंद करा था?
We were serving about, I think, 8 to 10,000 orders a month. We had served over about 1.5 lakh people across these
three cities.
3 cities.
Jaipur, Visakhapatnam and
Patna. And there was a small operation in Gurgaon, but Gurgaon was small.
And how many technicians you had?
At peak, I think we had about 200 people.
200 people in all cities?
All cities put together. 200, 250 people.
ठीक है. Why did you choose to shut that down?
So yeah, the thing with this business is, while we were able to do a lot of things right at the city level, this was a business that will make sense on scale. So if you had to look at economics of this business, on average, and I'm talking about a few things we had learned, we wanted to do, but there were other challenges. I'll explain to that. But if you look at electrician, plumber, appliance, etc., the average ticket size is about 400 rupees, maybe 500. average ticket size. Sometimes you'll be only 200 rupees per job. Sometimes it will be 700,
Average is
800.
400,
Average
let's
is
say.
400. Now, even if your take rate as a company is at 30%, you're making 120 rupees from one order. The remaining goes to the technician, you make 120 rupees. Now, in this 120 rupees, you have to get the marketing also.
मतलब आपका
CAC जो आपका वहाँ पर जाएगा,
आपकी ऑपरेशनल
कॉस्ट आपकी पूरी हो जाएगी, टेक पूरी हो जाएगी, सब कुछ उसमें मैनेज करना है. So at a 120 rupees का margin, it will work only at a very large scale.
What's that break even?
So at one point we had looked at the numbers that if we do 10,000 orders a month in 6 cities or so, is when it will start.
10,000 aggregated?
No. 10.
Single, every city 10,000?
Yes, every city 10,000. 300 orders a day from a city. If we could do in 6 cities, this would start making sense. In terms of all our overheads and all the things that we are doing, this would start making sense.
So what stopped you to take it to that scale?
So there was one way was the multiple cities. The other was if we could increase the ARPU, average order value, to a higher number, and the equation starts changing. So in that, what we looked at, either like we had to do both probably, but get to a 5 city, 6 city kind of scale, and look at services which are higher value.
Like
so we
AC?
started looking at AC is also still not on average that higher value, because most of the people are just going to get a service done, and that is also a very seasonal business. वो 2 महीने 3 महीने में सर्विस होना, उसके बाद कोई वो नहीं होने वाला. You need something which is ongoing and high value. Beauty was a segment that was there, where if you see the companies who have eventually been successful,
like
let's say Urban Club has a big component of beauty now,
right?
Which is where I believe they make a lot of money. That opens up a lot of other doors also, where not just service, even the product is something that you can bring in, like the things that they use for providing the beauty services. Wahan pe bhi you can start bringing some margin in with scale. So a lot of those things can come up, and this is a regular service. People who use it will need every 1 or 2 months. The average order value is high. You can upsell things even after getting into the user's home. Right. You can upsell more things. So all of that was possible. So we'd figured that slightly late, but we figured that this is the category where this equation gets much better. And the other part was scale. Even with these services coming in, the scale, this equation gets much better. And the other part was scale. Even with these services coming in, the scale is going to be important. So now to do this was something that probably we figured 2 years into the business, and we realized that now we need a lot more funding to be able to scale to markets, because we're still making losses. And to start a new category, there's going to be a complete new renewed effort towards it. We had figured the supply chain with respect to technicians for the services that we were doing, where to like get them, etc. But beauty was something that we had not done. So all of that was something that would require time and capital, which was becoming difficult at that point, because now this is 2017 is when we are trying to think. Other players are kind of shutting down. Urban Club had taken a big leap in terms of funding available and the scale that they've been able to get to. And unfortunately, a lot of companies, so the forever around hyperlocal went like this to this in 3 years. 2014 to 2017, it was like this. And by 2017, either companies were struggling or had already shut down after raising a few $1 million. So, and people will also realize that though it's a large opportunity, it's a difficult business, because it involves people. And it is a operations heavy, people dependent business, not something that you can automate or, not those kind of businesses. So it is having a scale challenge with respect to that part, which is where investor interest had also gone down in this space.
Fund raise कर रखा था?
Roughly about 2 million is what we had
in total. From single investor
at that point. So by the time we got into the market to kind of raise again, we realized that the market has died for this space, because one player has taken a big lead, others are struggling or shutting down, and everyone's realized that this is not an easy space to work in. So new money is not going to come into new players, and it is going to be a difficult thing to raise. And that's where we faced challenges. We were not able to raise our follow-on funding rounds, and made it difficult for us to continue, because this was a business that will require a lot of capital at that stage. That's where we had also started doing B2B parallel to B2C
B2B
before.
में क्या करते थे आप?
So B2B started as a same services, but for commercial setups. So if you need an AC servicing, we do a AMC annual maintenance contract with a commercial setup, or those kind of things is what we were trying to get into. But very quickly we moved into interior services, where the idea for us was कि ये technician हमारे पास हैं, there is a certain minimum guarantee that we need to pay to make sure that they are on the platform. In their low periods, when the demand is not that high, how do I get work for them, and how do I get the utilization up? That's where we started figuring out कि ये जो B2B में चीजें हैं, there is no seasonality here, and we can get annual maintenance contracts. We can do
B2B, for example, किसको भेजते थे आप? DLF, the property, or how?
So again, we were working in the smaller cities at that time. So we would work with, let's say, a hotel, for example. Usually in cities, एक line में 4-5 hotel होते हैं. So we would just go on and try to get those hotels to get services from us, or go to an office building and serve them. And then we started doing interior projects because they were larger in value one go. So we were setting up offices for people. We did a bunch of restaurants, interiors. So we were not the designers. We were they would have a designer. We were executing. We were working with companies like LiveSpace, Ultratech Cement, Levi's, Sony, setting up their stores, offices, whatever was the requirement.
सब कुछ electrician से लेकर
LiveSpace was homes. But so we do a interior contract. Everything we'll do. You have the designer, etc. You give us the details. We'll agree on a budget, and then we go on and execute the thing for you. So that is the B2B that we were doing. So we had started B2B already while we were doing B2C parallelly from a utilization perspective. Then we shut down B2C in 2018 and moved completely to B2B. B2B was a good business in terms of the economics of it. The volume was larger, margins were better, and you could kind of plan it that way. But the challenge that we were facing with B2B was B2B had less of technology intervention at that point. It was kind of a contracting business, service business, where we had to fight for every contract, and then and then next contract, and it was kind of, we had developed a lot of tech on our front to
make things easy for you.
Make things easier with respect to operations and bring in more visibility for the client. That was one of the things that we felt is missing in the current way of working.
But ये overall tech play नहीं था.
हमने tech बनाया था, but the end consumer did not care about the tech. They said very good, but eventually सबसे सस्ते में सबसे जल्दी करके कौन दे सकता है, प्रोजेक्ट उसका है. Can you do that? If you can, बहुत बढ़िया, आपका tech है, बहुत ही अच्छी बात है, but
मेरे को तो इंटीरियर चाहिए.
मेरे को इंटीरियर चाहिए, जल्दी से जल्दी, सबसे सस्ता, सबसे अच्छी क्वालिटी में. So if you can do that, that is what matters. So we realized that tech play is not there in this. It's a linear business. It's a good business, but not the business that we wanted to do. It is not going to do justice to the business as well as to our skill sets. And that's when we kind of decided after doing it for a year that we want to move on.
How hard or easy was that decision to close a business?
Closing B2C was very, very hard.
Because it was the first time?
Because it was the first time, and it involved a lot more people being affected. And it was something that we were very passionate about. To one day say to 60, at that point, at peak, we had 60 odd people working in our team other than the technicians. So maybe 60 odd people and 200 odd technicians, to tell them that from next month onwards, there's nothing. You have to figure out your own thing, was a big, very difficult for us to do. Emotionally, it was a big burden on us to say that these people are not going to have a job next month. and we are somewhere responsible for that. It was a big part for us to say that we have failed, to accept that we have failed in doing what we were trying to do. It was for us to go on and tell the team that, all the vision that we had shared with you, we are not going to be able to do that, to tell our investors that this is not working. It was difficult on many fronts, shutting down the B2C business. And honestly, it took us at least a couple of months for me and Gaurav to take that decision. I mean, we knew it's not going how we wanted. We've tried everything. We will have to take decision, but just taking that decision took us a couple of months. Because it was difficult. Eventually, when we did it, I remember in our Gurgaon office, and we got all the city offices also come on video call. We wanted to announce it to everyone together. And I remember Gaurav and I, we just broke down. We could not speak. It was difficult to even speak in front of the whole team that we not be able to do this going forward. And then, but we did best that we could, whatever, it was not really a big severance, but whatever we could, we gave that. We also offered everyone that we'll help you get jobs. If you think there's something in our network that can do that, we can do that. We also ensured that immediately after this announcement, next day morning, Gaurav and I both traveled to the cities to talk to those people face to face. That it should not be that video pe ho gaya and khatam. Even the technicians, that's where they said that can we do something to make it continue to run. So we did that. We did everything from our side to make sure that it is a fair way to do it. While it is not something that we want to and we feel very bad about it, but it's a fair, as fair as we can be, not hide somewhere and just let the local team handle all of that. We went in front of the technicians to tell them that this is what it is.
After shutting down, what was the scenario? क्या करा था आपने?
So shutdown was something that, again, because this was a B2B projects, we had taken up some projects which were going to, तो हमें complete करना था. तो हमें पता पहले से था, हमने investors को पहले बता दिया था that we are going to be shutting down. The team also knew that we are going to shut down, but we had to complete the projects. So in that sense, everyone knew it few months in advance that we are going to shut down, which is where the idea for this new company had also kind of started coming in for me. From a personal experience, so before Kaagaz, we built another product called Sorted AI, which was, as the name says, get your life sorted. With respect to, it was focused on documents and...
Because you had a personal...
yeah, so there was a personal incident after this Tapp Me shutdown had happened, and we were trying to figure out something. And
so बीच में कुछ भी नहीं था, बीच में you were figuring out the new product.
No, so Tapp Me B2B was still going on. So those projects were happening. And during that period, our investors were in Singapore. So Gaurav and I had traveled to Singapore. And that's when this incident happened, small family medical emergency happened, where I was in Singapore. I was not reachable for about half a day. And my wife had a small incident and she had to be taken to the hospital in emergency, etc. But they could not reach me. Of course, I had friends and who helped, and it worked out fine. But at that point, it was kind of a trigger for me that my wife had no clue about our health insurance, where is it, do we have one, etc. And that was a trigger for me that she needs to know all of this.
Right.
Now we also have a daughter, family is grown. She should know all the things that are there, whether it's about investments or all of that. And I thought I need to organize this information and share it with her. First thought was, एक Excel sheet बनाता हूँ, उसमें सब लिख देता हूँ, and I'll share that Excel with her, which is how it started. Then I realized कि ये तो update करनी पड़ेगी regularly, which was also not happening. First time बनाने में भी बहुत effort लग रहा था, और उसके बाद उसको regularly update करना, making sure that she has access to an updated file. I thought let me try a Google Drive, Google Sheet combination. कि Google Sheet पे करते हैं तो live document होगा, बार-बार Excel sheet नहीं share करनी पड़ेगी. Google Drive पे होगा तो cloud पे होगा, accessible होगा. But again, a lot of effort to do this. And the excitement fizzles out quickly. तब तो लगता है कि करना है and then you're struggling to find one document, ये document कहीं और पड़ा है, वो document कहीं और पड़ा है, too much effort. So my first thought was, if someone could do this for me, how great it would be. And I thought there must be some product for it. I looked and I couldn't find anything. There were apps that were trying to help people organize their documents, but it was like ये एक kind of हमने format दे दिया, इसमें आप upload कर लो, information डाल लो, and it will get organized. But my problem was वो effort ही नहीं डाल पा रहा हूँ ना मैं. I'm thinking कि यार weekend पे करूँगा, and that weekend never comes. So the thought was this has to be automated, otherwise it's not going to happen. अगर खुद से करना था तो मैं Excel में भी कर लेता. And that's when the thought came that can AI do this? At that point,
जब AI के बारे में कोई नहीं सोच रहा था.
2019 AI was Google Home and Alexa. And for me it was कि Alexa में भी ये कुछ चीजें तो हो रही है ना. So maybe AI can solve this. Alexa is able to understand what I'm saying. Right. So NLP has come to some place where they
can understand.
It can work. So maybe it can work, understand the text of a document and also do something with it. Right. So with that thought, I was trying to do it on my own, play with it, कि क्या हो सकता है, thinking about it. While of course Tapp Me, we had decided that we are going to be completing the projects and move on. That's when I spoke to Gaurav, that I'm thinking about this. Does it make sense to you? Right. Is this my problem only, or do you also face this? Gaurav is a lot younger than me. Is about 7 years younger to me. So his problems were not directly same as mine. He was not married, did not have a family, so did not have to worry about those things. But he said, I see this happening in my family. His family is in business. He said, I see the family struggling managing the documents for personal as well as business. So I see there is merit in this. But both of us are not the tech guys. We needed someone to also build it. So who do we trust the most and believe that we can do?
Taman, the first employee of
Tapp Me, Tamanjeet, who was a CTO. By that time, we had worked already for 3.5 years together. So we proposed to Taman that we had already been doing startup. He had not done that. We are not sure if he is going to be.
और आपने पहले कैसे उनको? How did you hire your first CTO? Is there a story behind that?
There is an interesting story there that. So we were trying to look for a tech person. I was looking in my network and trying to speak to some of my batchmates and figure something out. That's when someone introduced us to Taman, saying that I have worked with this guy. Guy, like, you will not have any problems with him. Just speak to him and figure if you are aligned on this. I met Taman. I remember our office used to be in Udyog Vihar in Gurgaon, and CyberHub. Opposite में CyberHub था, वहाँ पे Starbucks पे I met Taman. Taman was still working at the earlier company. As I said, Gaurav and I not from tech background, so we had no clue how to I had no clue how to hire a tech person. I was going on the recommendation from the person who had given the recommendation कि इन्होंने बोल दिया है तो tech part sorted है. Otherwise he would not say that. And I just need to figure, do we align on this? I think we spoke for about 45 minutes, an hour maybe.
And he was on board?
I said, we are keen. You come and meet Gaurav also once. And if you're interested, this is what we can offer. And you can come and join. And he also liked maybe the idea that we are thinking of and like the people, and he said yes, and I think he had some notice. In a couple of months he was on board.
One important thing, ये सिनेरियो बहुत कॉमन होता है जब एक नॉन टेक फाउंडर को कुछ करना होता है and then they are looking for a tech person. So ढूंढना एक अलग चीज चैलेंज होता है, बहुत सारा करने के बाद चलो एक बार मिल भी जाता है. That's a problem कि आप कितना ढूंढते हो, right? That's a solvable problem. Right. आपका नेटवर्क देखो, लोगों से मिलो. सबसे सेकंड प्रॉब्लम ये आती है कि हाउ डू यू फिगर उनको आप एम्प्लॉय रखोगे या को फाउंडर रखोगे. फर्स्ट केस में आपने उनको फर्स्ट एम्प्लॉय रखा, यू ऑनबोर्डेड हिम एज योर फर्स्ट एम्प्लॉय. सेकंड केस में यू ऑनबोर्डेड द सेम गाय एंड द सेम सेम सिचुएशन की नॉन टेक सीटीओ चाहिए एज अ को फाउंडर. हाउ डू यू डिसाइड एज अ नॉन टेक फाउंडर, अगर आप आज कुछ शुरू कर रहे हो, तो मैं अगर किसी CTO को या टेक्नोलॉजी पर्सन को लेके आता हूँ, उनको एक एज अ फर्स्ट एम्प्लॉई ऑनबोर्ड करें या उनको एज अ को-फाउंडर ऑनबोर्ड करें, और how do you decide that? And second thing, in either ways, how do you decide the equity and the pay?
So there are of course many factors related to it with respect to how long have you been already working on it, when are you taking the tech like CTO in place, is it on day one or is it later? So there are factors like that, but there's also, so Tapp Me was an operations business, a tech-enabled operations business. Like the core of it is operations, getting the services done.
Right.
Technology is going to enable that and make it better, more efficient. So from that perspective, having a technology person as a non-founder can also work.
Right.
Because
this is not core to business.
This is not, it is very important for the business, but it's not like कि इसके बिना ये business हो नहीं सकता. Like we started Tapp Me with a phone number and a basic setup. So in that scenario, it is something that you can work with. Of course, we had other factors in place also, where Taman at that point also probably was not looking at a founder role at that moment. We had the investors also. There was other parts of the equation as well. Second time around, when we were building Sorted, and of course the other factor was Taman was a complete outsider to us. So Gaurav and I also met like that, but we had a few months before this point where we had already, known each other for some time. Taman was a complete outsider. So that equation was also there, that, co-founder without knowing that person beforehand, how do you go about it? Second time around, we had already worked with Taman for 4 years almost. So we were clear that we want him as a teammate, not as an employee. We want him as a core team. We do it together. It's not like we start and he joins. We do it together. Probably if Taman had said no, I don't know if I would have started immediately. I would have to then look for someone who I can work with and who can also do this part. But Taman said yes, that's why Sorted happened. So that was the second time around where we had already had an equation. We knew each other very well. Taman, so one part that I suggest to someone who's looking for a CTO is, at times we just look at the technology part of it, the skill sets around technology. But as a CTO, even if you're hiring or a co-founder coming in, very important for that person to understand the business, the underlying business. When we work with Taman, or even when we were working with Taman in a different equation in Tapp Me, we had to discuss one thing, कि ये करना है. And then Taman would go and figure how to do it, because he understood the business logic of it. Right. And then convert it into tech.
Right.
I had no clue about tech at that time. I have no clue about tech today also. It's all Taman.
But you still code the front end.
I do a little bit on the front end part, but that's that. And I won't say like that skill is going to be helpful in whatever we are doing today, other than maybe maintaining the website of the company. But to have that person understand business logic is very, very important. Otherwise, वो tech translate करके अगर आपको करवाना है, then it's a difficult thing, because if you are not someone who understands tech as much, then it's a challenge. So our job is to explain the problem to Taman. He figures out how to convert it into a tech, like how to convert this into code. कि मुझे ये चाहिए, ये होना चाहिए, इसका code he figures out. हाँ, he figures it, and the amazing part has been during Tapp Me also and now also, अभी तो फिर भी हमारे पास, because we are building a tech company, a lot of things are run differently, and we are doing it also second time around, so we do a lot of things differently. But at that point, in Tapp Me history, we did not have a UX designer, UI UX designer. Right. It was us defining the product, and we did not have a product manager also. Right. It was us, me, Gaurav, understanding whatever business requirement is and giving it to Taman figuring out क्या बनना है. हाँ. Design be first level design, they'll do.
Right.
Most of it was anyway back end tech. It was not front end facing was of course the app, etc. We had some design elements to it, but he will figure out first version वो बना के लेके, then he would come that this is what I've made, and 95% of it is what I wanted.
Right.
That kind of thing is possible only when the person understands the business logic very well. So has to have that acumen to be able to do this. And if you can figure someone like that, great. So that was like another part to working with Taman, and how do I think of how to look at the co-founder who's going to handle tech.
Got it. Sorted AI का first project क्या था?
Sorted AI का first product was helping people organize their documents automatically.
कैसे करते थे? क्या app था?
So it was a web interface first. You upload a document, whether it's an ID card or insurance document or whatever, and it will automatically be able to identify what this document is, categorize it for you, put it in the right folders, also identify relevant information out of those documents. So if let's say it's an insurance document, it will be able to pull out the policy number, renewal date, reminder, all of that was the first product that we had as a web version.
लोग कैसे आए?
तो शुरू में हमने कुछ लोगों से बात करी थी कि इस तरह का कुछ बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, इंटरेस्ट होगा कि नहीं होगा. तो there were some people we had kind of interviewed, which is largely our network, and since we were building for us, we did not have to think much about who the user is. हमारे circle में we could kind of ask people to do this. So we basically went into our circles telling people. We were also very highly inspired by Dropbox story. When Dropbox, before making a product, made a video about what the product is going to be. So we also made a video before making the product, that this is how it's going to work with some basic design in place.
और उन्होंने तो कुछ प्रोडक्ट भी नहीं बनाते थे, वो ऐसे एक वीडियो बना देते थे कि ऐसे ऐसे काम करेगा और कुछ फीचर नहीं होता, सिर्फ फोटो होती थी.
We did the same thing. No product. We just made a video and
ऐसे ऐसे होगा.
ऐसे ऐसे होगा. ये this is the problem it's going to solve और ऐसे solve होगी. And based on that we got interest, and then we made the product and released it to the same audience. Probably 100 odd people in our network who we could share it with. We also ran one survey before to understand the problem.
कैसे करा था सर्वे?
Again, Google form बनाया, अपने network में डाल दिया to understand the same behavior with respect to जो मेरा challenge था कि मेरी family को पता नहीं है कि मेरे documents कहाँ हैं, with same idea.
तब भरते थे लोग, वो ऐसे सर्वे भरते थे, क्योंकि आज मैं बहुत सारे कॉमन फाउंडर्स ग्रुप में हूँ. हाँ, बहुत सारे वो आते हैं सर्वे, खोल के देखता हूँ.
This was family, like family and friends की भरेगा, नहीं प्रेशर करके भरवा सकते, नहीं भरो, भर के दो. So that was the kind of audience that we got to fill. And initial insight said कि ये तो product होना चाहिए, and we made. There's other stories of how it panned out eventually. But like one of the immediate things then came was कि यार document upload करना है, but document तो मेरे पास physically available है. How do I get it on the website? तो हमने एक app बनाई. App बनाने के टाइम पे ये था कि it was 3 of us only. We did not have anyone in the team. तो Taman said कि I'll figure out the Android part. We'll do a hybrid app. ये जो अपनी website है, इसी को ऐप के अंदर खोल देंगे, ब्राउज़र एक ऐप रैपर बना के उसके अंदर खोल देंगे. और and I could do the front end for website basic thing. So I said I'll do the front end to make sure that it is responsive, so that phone में ये ऐप के अंदर ठीक दिख जाएगा. So Taman kind of figured out the wrapper around. He's a backend developer. Android he figured कि कैसे करेंगे. Took some help from somewhere and we got an app version of it and then released again. कि अब ये ऐप है.
और जो अपने दूसरे वाले co-founder है वो क्या करते थे?
His part was marketing to get to people. He was the one who was the outside face. Even that same equation today also.
Got it.
So he would get people to use it, like get to people, share it with people, and do that. And then we started getting feedback, some direct feedback, some indirect feedback with respect to how people are using it. And then of course the journey.
और वो कितना how did the product pan out, the first one? कितना लंबा था, कितना स्केल था, कितने लोग थे, यूजर्स थे?
All together we did that for about a year and tried many different things. So documents se start hua, then we added reminders, as an independent of the document layer. So you could create, it was kind of a reminders app, reminders notes app kind of thing. Then we wanted to build a personal assistant where it will organize all your information. Documents is one set of information, but you're getting a lot of things on SMSs as information. A lot of notifications come to you. So we'll pull everything together and organize this whole information, identify the important ones, set up reminders for you, etc. So at one point tried doing a lot of these things, then realized this is too big a vision to start with. We need to solve one problem, went back to documents. So all of this happened over a year roughly, and it was just the three of us building. We had hired one intern in the later half of the year.
घर कैसे चला रहे थे इस समय पे?
इस समय पे घर पूरा सेविंग पे चल रहा था, and of course my wife was also working, so that helped a lot. First time around she was not, because we were just having a kid, so she was not working at that time. This time around she was working, so that helped a lot. This time around there was no funding on day one. Last time there was, this time there was no. So this time 1 year was zero pay, running all.
Was that hard?
It was. I mean, I had savings to say that we can manage it, but it was hard. I mean, we had to make sure that we are like conscious about what we're spending on. But it was not something that made sure that we're not cutting down on our important lifestyle. It's not changed that per se. Had savings to kind of support that, and of course wife was working, so there was support on that front. So लेकिन there was 1 year without salary. Salary in fact salary started coming in. We started 2009, almost 1 year later.
जब आपने
फंडिंग हुई थी उसके बाद.
फिर स्कैनर का जो कागज ऐप का आइडिया था वो कैसे आया और नाम कैसे डिसाइड करा? नाम इज सो इंट्यूटिव.
So sorted के टाइम पे as I said we were struggling with respect to user adoption.
कितने आ गए थे उस पे यूजर आपके
साल में? Peak it went to about 50,000 downloads or something.
और वो कैसे लेके आए थे 50,000 लोग?
थोड़ा बहुत मार्केटिंग स्पेंड कर रहे थे हम लोग.
ASO करा था?
ASO पे कुछ स्पेंड किया था, कुछ Google Ads पे कुछ स्पेंड किया था to figure out how do we get some initial users. But the challenge that we were facing with Sorted was that Sorted किसी से भी बात करते थे. Even today I speak to people about that product and they say कि ये तो बनाना चाहिए तुमको, this should exist. Everyone wants it. Nobody really needs it.
Help me understand the difference, the want and the need.
So when you tell someone कि ये है, this will ease your life, they'll say yes, of course it will. If it can organize my documents automatically, it is something that I need. But the first step of that is you have to upload the document to this for it to be able to do anything.
Right.
But document upload करने वाला part जो है ना, वो no one gets up in the morning thinking कि आज मैं अपने documents organize करने वाला हूँ. It is only when you face a problem, the need कि अभी मुझे वो document चाहिए और नहीं मिल रहा है, is the moment when you are thinking कि यार ये organized होना चाहिए. But the moment that situation is past, you are back into this कि यार weekend पे करूँगा, अभी बहुत पेन से निकला हूँ मैं, अभी तो ये मिल गया है, अब नेक्स्ट वीकेंड पे आई ऑर्गेनाइज एवरीथिंग, सब कुछ एक जगह पे डाल के कर दूंगा. लेकिन वो वीकेंड कभी नहीं आता है, बिकॉज इट इज गुड टू हैव प्रोडक्ट, नॉट अ मस्ट हैव एट दैट पॉइंट. इट इज अ मस्ट हैव व्हेन यू आर फेसिंग द प्रॉब्लम, बट तब कुछ कर नहीं सकते हो, तब तो कैसे भी ढूंढना ही है. एंड वंस यू पास दैट प्रॉब्लम, देन अगेन इट इज नॉट मस्ट हैव फॉर यू. सो दैट वाज द प्रॉब्लम विद सॉर्टेड, एंड वी हैड रियलाइज्ड दिस very soon, because I tell this example to many friends, many people, that my father, I mean, as all fathers are, or all parents are, that they will think that whatever you're doing is like the best in the world. Right. And my father said कि बहुत बढ़िया, ये तो अच्छा है, and I'll use it. But if he is also not using it, and he is the one who is completely organized already, तो उनको ऐसे नहीं कि उनको document ढूंढना पड़ेगा. He is already doing everything in the files. He just have to open the file and just start clicking pictures and upload.
Yeah.
He's also not doing it. That means there's a fundamental problem with respect to the need. Right. And that's when we figured कि ये तो नहीं work out कर रहा है. We need to figure something else out. During this period, COVID had hit already, February, March of 2020. And everyone was forced into working from home. Lockdowns हो गए थे. And we saw a behavior where people in our WhatsApp groups also were asking कि यार I have to upload my child's assignment or something onto, because online education, how do you scan?
But why do you need a scanner? You can take a photo. I'm just being skeptical about that
right.
point.
So the big part about scanning versus photo clicking is when you have to submit something which is multiple pages, scanning makes it one file.
Right.
Photo में सब अलग-अलग करना पड़ेगा.
And it's heavier also.
Heavier also, and a lot of times you don't have the option of uploading multiple. You just have got one upload window.
Right.
And you have to upload 5 pages.
And you have to upload in maybe a PDF or something.
In a small size.
Right.
So you have to kind of figure how to do that, and that's where scanning comes in, a PDF making comes in. And people are looking at कि ये कैसे करते हैं, because अभी तक तो ये जरूरत नहीं पड़ी थी, या जरूरत पड़ती थी तो ऑफिस में एक स्कैनर होता था, वहाँ पर लगा के हो जाता था.
ठीक है.
Now how do we do it? And to me it was very strange because I had been using a scanning app since 2011 from my ISB days, CamScanner. That was the only app in 2011. If you look at Adobe, Microsoft, they all came in 2016, 17, much later. And my first thought was, ये तो solved problem है ना, already exist करती हैं apps. Why are people asking this question? Why can't they just figure something available? And I realized that if in my circle, where people are tech savvy and educated and everything, if they are finding it difficult to figure out there's a scanning app and use it, and what would be the challenge for, by this time Jio has already happened. The Chinese smartphones have penetrated in India throughout. This new audience who's come to internet recently using these Chinese smartphones and the internet from Jio, for them this is all very new. They would definitely not know about these things. If my circle is also like that, they will definitely not know this. So that's when the idea triggered, maybe there is an opportunity here where you need to build something which is focused on this audience. And we of course did some more research to figure out why people are not able to use it. A lot of people don't know ऐसा कुछ exist करता है. If they figure out, they find these tools difficult for you to use with respect to the Bharat user, because to use any of the global products, it starts with an email ID login. Bharat doesn't have an email ID. For them, everything happens over phone and OTP. Something as simple as that to making sure that all these products are available only in English. Bharat wants to also use their language. Bharat has not seen these products in the desktop world.
Right.
They don't understand the iconography also in these apps. Then it needs to be built differently for them.
Right.
And that's where we thought there is an opportunity. We were also having challenges with respect to with respect to adoption. We thought there is clear adoption here because these people are all asking for it. So there is a complete clear need. And if we can build something useful, there should be something to do here. Till this time, still it's the 3 of us and 1 intern working with us. At that point, we said, how do we quickly experiment this? Taman said, basic scanner app to ban jayegi. I just made some basic designs.
Right.
Taman quickly coded something. In about a week or so, we had a basic app ready
And
to
there
release.
were, OCR and other scanner models जो आप you could plug and play.
Not directly plug and play, but OpenCV is what everyone uses for edge detection and image enhancement, etc. So that was there. We could, and that's open source. So we could pick that up and do some work on it to figure our own app. And for workflow, हमने उस हिसाब से plan कर लिया था based on our understanding of what this user is facing challenges with other apps. So our app did not have a login, login ही नहीं था, forget email.
खोलो चलाओ
use करो, that's it. And simple, click photo and get a scan.
अभी तक आप monetization के बारे में नहीं सोच रहे हो?
अभी तो हम figure out कर रहे हैं what do people want. And this is when we, in a week or so, we created it and launched it. And
2 हफ्ते बाद?
हाँ, so first 2 weeks we had about less than 1,000 downloads or so.
और ये सिर्फ आपने 1,000 downloads. I want to understand. See, a lot of people will watch this for the inspiration of building a business on an app thing. So you want to understand from scratch. First, it's very important to understand कि what people want. आपने बहुत सारे iterations करे. उस iteration के बाद आपको लगा कि यहाँ थोड़ा सा demand है, and you were observant among your WhatsApp groups. आपने insight लिया, consumer insight लिया, and then you created this छोटा सा first prototype जो थोड़ा सा चलता है, और आपने launch करा, and you have no control over other things. आपने सिर्फ upload कर दिया. उसके बाद how will you get the first 1,000 customers?
So one, we again went to our network.
WhatsApp groups.
हाँ, कि जहाँ पे लोग मांग रहे थे वहाँ पर हमने दे दिया कि ये है, इससे यूज कर सकते हो. And we got some people downloading from there. We had, by that time, name was also something that we had already put Kaagaz as a name.
बहुत बहुत अच्छा नाम है, अच्छा लगता है सुन के. What was the?
So at that point, when we were building this, the insight was that Bharat user wants something.
ये Bharat user, you have spoken a lot of times. So first, number one, define Bharat user. Number two, when did the idea of making for Bharat user came to you?
Right. So, so Bharat user, with respect to definition, is someone who's come to internet in the last few years, 4-5 years, thanks to internet being accessible and smartphones being accessible, and someone who's leapfrogged the desktop generation altogether. So these people have never been digital with their computer or laptop.
पहली बार देख रहे हैं फोन पे,
पहली बार डिजिटल हुए हैं फोन से. आप और मैं, हमारी जर्नी लैपटॉप पे शुरू हुई है, डेस्कटॉप पे शुरू हुई है. This user gotten digital with their phone. Now their understanding of technology, their requirements of technology are very different compared to ours.
Give us an example. आपने अभी एक और चीज बोली थी, their understanding of iconography is very different.
Right.
Give us one or two great examples of this.
When you get into an app and you see a download button, you know this is download. Intuitively, you know this is download. When you get into any app, you see a plus button, intuitive. इसको दबा के कुछ अभी activity, main activity इससे होने वाली है. For Bharat users, all of this is
unknown, पता ही नहीं
है. They don't know कि ये button का मतलब download है. It has to have download written below it for them to know कि ये download है. Download is just an example, but even if you go in Kaagaz, जो main scan का button है, if you look at global products, there's a plus button. If you go into Kaagaz, there's a capsule button, which has a plus icon, but also says scan PDF. Now, if you think of it, scan PDF doesn't make sense. You scan a document, you make a PDF. You don't scan a PDF.
कोई बाहर वाले को बोलो कि minimalistic करो, no text.
Correct. So, भारत यूजर के लिए स्कैन पीडीएफ, बिकॉज दैट्स व्हाट दे अंडरस्टैंड. मुझे स्कैन करके पीडीएफ बनाने को स्कैन पीडीएफ उनको समझ में आता है. सो वी हैव अ लार्ज बटन विच रीड्स स्कैन पीडीएफ. वी हैव अ पॉइंटर टुवर्ड्स इट विच सेज क्लिक हियर टू स्कैन फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इन द लैंड इनसाइड. एंड दीज थिंग्स हैव कम विद आइटरेशंस. हमारे भी फर्स्ट वर्जन में सिर्फ ग्रीन प्लस बटन था.
Help us understand, आपको कब ये अंडरस्टैंडिंग आई कि you are building or the target that your target audience is the Bharat is not.
It actually came, I mean, the word Bharat came much later for us in our minds. What we understood was that this is a different user. वो हमें जल्दी समझ आ गया था. फर्स्ट वर्जन में नहीं आया था. फर्स्ट वर्जन तो हमने रोल आउट किया था, एंड देन वी स्टार्टेड ट्रैकिंग द नंबर्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ यूजेज, एंड वी रियलाइज कि ये एक्शन नहीं हो रहा है, उतना नहीं हो रहा है कि जितने लोगों ने डाउनलोड किया, स्कैन करने वाला परसेंटेज लो है. Why did people not scan? This app had only one button to click on. Why did people not do anything with it? इसमें तो तब तो और कोई फीचर्स भी नहीं थे. And that's when we started digging deeper to figure out the user behavior. And we also realized that a lot of people who are new to technology, now of course 5 years into it with this whole internet revolution that has happened, people have become a lot more comfortable with technology. शुरू में लोगों को किसी भी बटन को दबाने में भी डर लगता था, कुछ हो जाएगा तो फोन खराब हो जाएगा, कुछ और चीज हो जाएगी, कोई मेरे पैसे ले जाएगा, whatever. People were scared. And it happens with, like, in our generation also, when people first time got a laptop, they would have been scared कि कहाँ क्लिक करने से कुछ हो तो नहीं जाएगा. That was the case initially, and we had to make sure that it is very clear for them कि यहाँ क्लिक करने से ये होगा. So you know what you're clicking on, you're not scared of doing that. So that was something that we got very early on. What helped us was Kaagaz launch होने के 2 हफ्ते बाद there was a Chinese app ban,
which led to opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah, so which led to in a day 100,000 downloads, and suddenly a lot of feedback pouring in, directly and indirectly. A lot of people started sending feedback over email in reviews and everything. And at that point we did not even have a WhatsApp number inside the app. There was an email ID. Again, we were building with the idea of the Western world, while we had figured कि हाँ कुछ और है, but हमने देखा कुछ नहीं था इस तरह का, तो हम वो बना रहे थे जो हमने देखा था. हमने वहाँ email डाल रखा था. Some people responded on email, some people started writing on reviews. We got a lot of feedback. We realized that this is a different audience, their requirements are different. First thing we did was put in a phone number to WhatsApp us for any problems instead of email. And Gaurav used to handle customer support for a very long time, Gaurav. And I mean, even today, we actually look at the customer support directly ourselves most of the times. So Gaurav used to handle all of that. He will reply, and we got a lot of feedback coming in from there about what is it that people are facing challenges with. तब हमारा data analytics भी कुछ ज़्यादा setup नहीं था because we had not planned for this kind of scale. We set up a data analytics, basic analytics in place to understand what is getting clicked, what is getting used, not used, etc. And then started gathering more data by talking to the users as well as looking at the behavior on the app and started understanding this behavior. And then the word Bharat came in later for us. At that point, there was the Chinese altercations already happening on the border.
And then the government.
So there was this sentiment that was going strong that we want Indian products.
Indian products, right.
And we were also at that time thinking with respect to that. So we thought, let's call it Kaagaz. Let's be Indian.
किसका idea था कागज नाम?
Kaagaz, I was the one who said
कैसे आया
Kaagaz.
था? What was the? Of course, this is a.
As like just a moment of कि documents scanning की app बना रहे हैं, documents के लिए app बना रहे हैं. Kaagaz Scanner is what it will be. And I shared it with Gaurav and Taman. They said कि सही है, कर लेते हैं.
And how did you figure out लाल कलर का ही बनाएंगे?
बहुत logic, बहुत thought process नहीं था. We just thought that, honestly, again, as I said, we did not have anyone else. It's just the three of us. And so logo बनाना था फटाफट के पे app बनानी है तो एक logo चाहिए, icon चाहिए. So I looked at, हाँ नहीं, I just made a logo. I can do basic designing stuff. So I just made this logo. कि this looks like a scanning app का logo. And we made one. Color was not really a big thought at that point. Just wanted something which is striking and differentiating. That's it.
24 घंटे में 1 lakh downloads कैसे आए थे?
So basically, I remember 29th June रात को ये announcement हुआ था, Chinese apps ban. We knew that the biggest app in India for scanning is CamScanner, which is a Chinese product, and that's gotten banned. So we saw that as an opportunity कि ये अभी moment है for us to tell people that here's an Indian alternative that's available for you and you can use it.
आपने 2 हफ्ते पहले अपना प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च कर दिया था.
2 हफ्ते पहले लॉन्च हो गया था.
आपको कोई जानकारी नहीं थी कि इंडियन गवर्नमेंट बैन कर देगी.
Of course. But we had this thing that there is a sentiment around Indian products. So we wanted to kind of position ourselves that way. That was something that was conscious. But of course, we did not know that something as big as a ban of Chinese apps going to happen. But when it happened, we figured that this is our moment. If we have to push, we can, like, we have to just go all out. Right. So I remember news में आया था. I was just listening to it, and then Gaurav called saying कि ये हो गया है, and we were on a con call, Gaurav, me and Taman, कि क्या करना है. And we discussed कि यार social media पे सब जगह let's just go all out. All WhatsApp groups, all people that we know, ask everyone to just share this. And we made a nice message saying that Chinese apps are banned, this app is not allowed anymore, here's an alternative, please download. And we just started pushing that and started seeing downloads. And रात को downloads बढ़ते जा रहे हैं. Gaurav and I and like Taman, we were talking multiple times through that night, and we thought यार सही जा रहा है ये तो, let's see what it becomes into. But सुबह अगर कल तक 50,000 डाउनलोड हो गए एक दिन में तो मजा आ जाएगा. मतलब फोड़ देंगे. अगर 50,000 हो गए तो this would be amazing.
साल भर में हमने 50,000 लिए.
मतलब this would be amazing और 50,000 डाउनलोड आ गए तो. And we slept with that thought after doing everything. What worked amazingly well for us was everyone supported. जिसको भेजा, जिसकी जितनी रीच थी, whether it was on WhatsApp, whether it was on social media, Facebook पे कोई डाल रहा है, LinkedIn पे कोई डाल रहा है, everyone that we even like hardly knew supported and put it out. Some people who we did not know also put it out with the idea, and some of the Twitter handles picked us up on that time, saying that here's an Indian alternative for this, which went into a different loop which we would have never been able to get ourselves into. So the moment someone on Twitter shared something, and these were some of the some of the people, some of the politicians picked up because it was an important message for them to put out also. The social media worked amazingly for us. And the morning we got up, we saw ये number तो already 50,000 touch कर रहा है. And this is just continue to grow. And 24 hours, we looked at the number, it was about 200,000 plus. We also started getting a lot of feedback. As this was a quick product, it had its bugs, it was not working on certain phones. We started getting a lot of feedback. ये feedback तो हमको पहले 3 घंटे में आ गया था और पहले 3 घंटे में feedback आ गया था और उस feedback को fix करके हमने एक app update भी भेज दी थी. Unfortunately, that update went live 3 days later. But we were getting a lot of feedback. What worked in our favor in some sense was also that this was a completely offline app. You did not need internet, you did not, and there was no server cost for us.
Right.
So we did not have any money to kind of even support if the scale was leading to a cloud cost, which was the case for, let's say, short video apps. So we did not get any of those challenges because it was completely running on your device, and which made the scale part easier for us. Like technically, tech-wise, it was easier for us to scale, and we continued to get downloads. I think the next month or so, we were at about 1 million downloads.
और ये million downloads सिर्फ virality से आए थे?
Largely viral. उस टाइम पे actually सब कुछ viral ही था. We had little bit of budget, so we thought let's put in.
कितने रुपए लगाए थे अंदाजा?
I don't recall exactly, but so what happened was ये हुआ था, उसके within 4 days we had raised our first angel check.
4 दिन में?
हाँ, literally 4-5 दिन में.
कैसे करा था, किसने करा था?
So Farid Hassan of ShareChat, he's a friend of Gaurav. He's a batchmate with Gaurav, and he's a friend. We had been speaking to him during sorted period as well. He was we were bouncing off ideas with him all the time. When this happened, ShareChat was also in the same boat as they were launching Moj, and they understood this opportunity, I think, better than anyone else at that point, with TikTok ban happening and they getting the opportunity. They probably understood the opportunity better than anyone else, and Farid said, you will need money. I'm going to put money. And he committed from his side, and he said, I'll get first check, which is
First check VC.
First check fund. He said, I will put in some, and I'll get some more money for you through first check. So that is how our first money.
How much?
We had raised one check before this from Axelor for sorted, but for Kaagaz, this was the first money. And I think, like, we had known Kushal also before, who was running first check at that point. For sorted context, I had met him, was introduced to him earlier by Farooq. Farooq has also been a friend, so he had introduced to first check before. So we had some rapport with them with respect to sorted. Right. And then Farid like brought this back, and they were very keen, and immediately like we did some basic documentation. Okay, and I think within 4-5 days we had the money in the bank.
And how much did you raise?
We raised about 40 lakh rupees at that time.
Got it. And 40 lakh पे आपने कितनी valuation dilute करी थी?
यार वो convertible note था, so there was no direct dilution happening. That's why it was so fast also, because it was a convertible note. Equity होता पूरा तो it would have taken time to do that transaction. So convertible note था, I think about 12 or 15 crore valuation.
Got it.
We got that money.
ठीक है.
And then the proper, I mean, we were able to close the seed funding round in August or September, late August, I think. But that was an equity round. So by the time all the formalities and everything got done, we had money, I think, in November in our account. So till that time, it was the 40 lakhs that we had to kind of live with. This round was about $580,000, led by Pravega, and got few more investors in that round, including Axelor put in more money, Better Capital came in, a bunch of more angels came in.
And this was the seed round.
This was the seed round.
इसमें आपने कितना dilute करा था दूसरे वाले उसमें?
So we raised at about $3 million valuation.
Got it.
At that point, 3 million would be about 21-22 crores. and we raised about $580,000. So whatever the math is.
टेल मी, जो आपने 40 लाख रुपए उठाए थे उस वक्त कहाँ पर स्पेंड करे थे आपने? दिस वाज ओनली मार्केटिंग?
Only marketing spend was the spend that we had, और कोई खर्चा ही नहीं था हमारा.
हेल्प मी अंडरस्टैंड, आपके पास एक ऐप है और आपके पास 40 लाख रुपए हैं. हाउ वुड यू गो अबाउट मार्केटिंग दैट ऐप?
If there is an opportunity like the one that we had, things go differently, because we already had a defined demand and we had to push for grabbing the market as much as we could. So we immediately put it into an app के case में doing a universal app download campaign Google का होता है, that worked very well for us. So you basically put in some budget and it will then figure out where to show the ads. So mostly when you search on Play Store, you see some ads at the top. Mostly it's where the ads going to show up and you get downloads from there. But UAC campaign shows ads at other platforms also. But majorly came from there. So for us, it was at that point clear that this is where we are going to put in, and we are going to be a little more aggressive early on because there's an opportunity open. If it's a different scenario where there's no market dynamics like this, and you're just starting out and you have that kind of money, I would say rather than going into spending money on marketing, focus a lot more on ASO. We did ASO much later. We did not know about ASO as much at that point.
Tell me 2 or 3 interesting ways where you nudge your audience, your users, to maybe give you a review or maybe to do something which is, good for you.
So review के लिए तो you have in-app nudges to the users. So you figure out at what point you want to nudge the user. That
app खुलने के
the idea is that the best way is when the user has got an aha moment in the app, and after that you kind of ask them for a review. So they were here to scan. अगर वो स्कैन करने आया उस वक्त आप रिव्यू मांगने लगोगे तो रिव्यू नहीं मिलेगा, इसको काम करना है. Once his job is done, is satisfied with the output. Now, before they leave, if you ask them, would you want to review us? People do. And we have, I think, over 2 lakh reviews.
आज की डेट में, how many people are on the app? How many total downloads are there on the app?
Yeah, downloads would be, we have stopped tracking downloads number as much because we now look at monthly active users more. Downloads would be somewhere around 25 million plus.
And how many monthly active users?
Altogether, about 3.2 to 3.5 million monthly active users.
Great. And how many daily active users?
About 4 lakh plus daily active users.
4 lakh plus. What are top 5 metrics for you in an app?
So that changes based on what stage you are at. At one point, it was downloads for us. Once you realize that downloads तो बहुत सारे आ गए हैं, the important part is, are people staying in the app or not? That's when you start looking at DAU numbers. Once you've got DAU coming in, you realize कि DAU तो है लेकिन
पैसा दे रहेगा.
पैसा तो comes in much later for our kind of product, but DAU के बाद what is their retention with respect to like DAU to MAU, या weekly active to daily active, weekly active to monthly active, what is the ratio playing like?
What's a good ratio?
Depends on the product. Some products are inherently daily use case.
For example?
So let's say social media product is a daily use case product. So वहाँ पे DAU by MAU ratio is very important. For our kind of product, we are more of a weekly use case product, work related things. So for us, it's a weekly active to monthly active. We hover around 45 to 50% weekly to monthly active user base. If you look at a travel app, for example, 3 महीने में एक बार use होती है. So for them, DAU to MAU would not make sense. Matter. So it depends on the product. So that's one metric that becomes important at some point. Then you start looking at retention, month 1 retention क्या है. Depending on again product, D1, D7 भी देखते हैं लोग, month 1 भी देखते हैं, week 1, week 2 भी देखते हैं, depending on the product frequency. Eventually comes down to revenue. For us, it is the most important metric right now. Revenue क्या चल रहा है, and revenue is kind of a lagging metric because revenue is after transaction has happened, but transaction happen होने के पहले we look at some leading metrics in terms of usage कि ये tool use हो रहा है कि नहीं हो रहा है. Because if the user is going to use this, then only they'll eventually pay, because this is where the value they'll see worth paying.
अभी सबसे ज़्यादा वैल्यू कहाँ कैप्चर हो रही है ऐप पे? What's the most used?
So most used feature is scanning still. That is where the biggest use case is. The other big use case for us is PDF reader. Kaagaz is used as a PDF reader also a lot. The value capture happens for us around, so scan and PDF reader are free. The premium tools start in when you're looking to edit your PDF,
Right.
or you want to store documents more than the free limit, or you want to use some advanced features in scanning. This is where the premium starts. So the revenue capture happens largely at a PDF editing step right now for us, where people come in to use, they get a freemium model, try it for free for 1 or 2 times, and then if they want to use more, they're asked to pay. So that's when the revenue, so revenue gets captured here, usage still largely on the scanning side.
So there are only two ways, please correct me if I'm wrong, there are only two ways to earn money from app. One, you advertise, or second, you ask them to pay a software service, or is there any third way also?
Ads is one, subscriptions is another. Games में you usually see in-app purchases.
Right.
इस लेवल पे जाने के लिए ये खरीदना पड़ेगा, ये वाला वेपन लेने के लिए ये खरीदना पड़ेगा, कॉइन्स यूज करने पड़ेंगे, कॉइन्स बाय करने पड़ेंगे, etc.
आपने करे कभी कोई coins buy?
नहीं, I've not been a big gaming app person, but so that is another, in-app purchase is another way. Then another thing that is kind of becoming more relevant, so there are certain apps which are core, not core technology products. So for example, in Uber, there's no ads, there is ads, but the transaction is where the money is. So for them, that is where the money makes, they make money. For a pure technology product like ours or a gaming app, etc., these are largely where people make money. There are also ways potentially where you could create another transaction layer above what you're doing and make money on that potentially, which is in a sense cross-selling something else. So you got them here to use your tool, now you're cross-selling them something else which they'll have to pay for.
Have you thought about cross-selling something to your consumers? Is there any potential product?
We have that at the back of our mind with respect to, we have an active user base and we have certain personas that are there using Kaagaz regularly. So, so one is cross-selling other products. So we built another product called Poster Maker, which we cross-sell to people who are using Kaagaz.
It's a competitor to Canva, but for phone. It's a Canva for phone?
It is a Canva for Bharat. When I say Bharat, one is of course mobile first, which is core to how we build anything. But Bharat user, the user that we are looking at, wants to get digital with respect to promoting themselves or their business, but does not have the bandwidth to know how to create a design, what content to post. All of those things is not something that they have. That's why they're sharing whatever is coming to them from a forward from somewhere else.
Right.
Now this gives them an opportunity where we have ready content in Poster Maker. If it's Diwali today, you will get a Happy Diwali ke bahut sare posters within Posters app, which you can select. It gets personalized for you automatically based on your profile information, your name, phone number, photo, logo, etc. All gets placed on it automatically, and you just download or share the poster. You don't have to make anything like you would have to do in any other product, where it is developed for people who can design, for a marketing audience, for a designer audience. That is something that they can use. Here, they want something to post. They don't, except for, of course, Diwali and bigger days, they don't necessarily know what to post today. So they use Poster Maker as a tool which tells them what is relevant today. आज ये पर्टिकुलर डे है, इसका पोस्टर बना हुआ अवेलेबल है, उस पोस्टर पे आपका पर्सनलाइजेशन हो जाएगा. You don't have to write anything, you don't have to design anything, you just share.
Tell me two things. So challenges जो challenges दिमाग में आते हैं, number one, it's a utility tool जिसके लिए लोग पैसा पे नहीं करते जनरली. दूसरा, you are making for Bharat. How do you solve this problem? How do you get money out of people's pocket?
So with respect to utility app making money, you have to figure out the value that the user is taking at what point and figure कि वो उस चीज़ के लिए पैसे देंगे. So they won't pay you for just using the app. For example, in Kaagaz, if you have to upload a document on a government website, वहाँ पे restriction है कि 500 KB के अंदर PDF फाइल होनी चाहिए. Now you need to make a PDF file of whatever document you have, a photo maybe, or a physical document, and you have to make sure that it's under 500 KB. Now first you use Kaagaz to scan that document. Now let's say there are 10 pages to that document. It ends up becoming 2, 3, 4 MB document. Now you have to also upload it under 500 KB. So you need to compress that. So scan to free hai. Compression is where the paid layer comes in. Now if you have to upload it on the government website, you have to upload it. And size kam karna hai, so this is where the opportunity comes in for us to charge for that. We give it for free. So one-off use case for an individual, they can do it for free also. But there are people who run businesses where they have to do this on a daily basis for their clients, for example. For them, it is part of their business. It helps them do their business better. So for them, पहला एक free है, दो free है, तीसरे पे we'll say कि अब compress करने के लिए you have to pay. That is the moment where they now clearly understand the value. They clearly attribute that value to helping them with their business, which has a monetary angle eventually. They'll say, I'll pay for this. So this is how, for example, in Kaagaz happens. Poster maker में क्या होता है? Content उनको otherwise भी मिल रहा है. We make sure there is a good quality content, good designs available. Now for them to upload, what these users want, I mean, some of these users want is, they are trying to promote themselves, their own brand, personal brand, or their business. तो उनको उसका लोगो भी चाहिए, अपना फोटो भी चाहिए, उस बिजनेस का एड्रेस भी चाहिए,
और आपका कागज का बैकग्राउंड भी नहीं चाहिए,
मेरा कागज का लोगो वाटरमार्क भी नहीं चाहिए. All that is paid. So if you want a poster, you'll get it for free. It will have your name. It will have a Kaagaz watermark, small watermark on the side. But the content is available for free. It will also have your name. If you want to put your photo, that's paid. We will show you in the app how it works so that you know what you're paying for. It's not that you have to pay first and then you get to see how the poster is going to look like. So you'll see how the poster looks, but you can download with a photo only if you've paid. Without photo, so again, for the normal user who just wants to share something, it's free. For the user who has a intent or who has an other objective associated to this sharing activity, which is to promote themselves or their business, now has already attributed some value to it. In their minds. That's when we ask something back from them. For you to gain that value, you give us this value today.
How do you decide कि इतनी वैल्यू इनसे मांग सकते, इतना पैसा इनसे मांग सकते?
वो iterative है.
19 रुपए, मतलब I'm not sure very.
Pricing is iterative. You have to figure it out and keep trying. One thing that we learned during YC also, and I've read it otherwise also with respect to pricing experiments. Easiest way is put the price what you think, see what people are paying. अगले हफ्ते double कर दो price and see what people are paying. If you think कि बहुत अचानक से drop आ गया, then you know कि ये price work नहीं कर रही है. You have to then go back and figure. If people continue to pay, double again. Till that time when you start seeing कि अब, so the optimal price that the experts say is where it pinches the pocket a little, but it's still important. So that is the optimal price where you are making the maximum out of that transaction. उससे कम है तो you're leaving something on the table. People will buy easily, but you might lose something. उससे ज़्यादा charge कर रहे हो तो people will not buy. You lose customers. और बहुत कम charge कर रहे हो तो of course you're leaving a lot on the table.
और वो optimum point पे आप iteration करके पहुँचते हो.
Iteration करके पहुँचते हो. Iterate करने के भी दो तरीके हैं. One way is the approach that we've taken where we started with a small price.
9 rupees?
9 was there at one point. Of course, we had different plans. So I think the lowest where features were available was 99.
ठीक है.
99 for a year. 9 was only a no ads app.
Yes,
so you
I
just
remember.
remove ads, but no features available, no premium features available. So the approach is we were trying to first answer the question that will Bharat pay for a software product like this.
Does Bharat pay?
Yes, Bharat pays. Bharat paid for 99, and the fact that we've been able to move from 99 to 499 and people still pay is the fact that वो price बहुत low थी. 99 से 199 गए, 299 गए, 399 गए, 499 गए. We tried, I think 699, 799 also, which did not look like working very well. So we came down to 499. We believe there is more potential also still, but right now 499 works as a good price for a year for Kaagaz as a product. Postamaker also has a similar pricing. But it's iterative. We went this way. The other approach could be a Netflix way, that we'll come with the global price, the expensive wala plan, and then figure lower plans for कि mobile के लिए अलग price है, only mobile के लिए अलग price है, etc. That is another approach that people can take to figure what is the right price to.
आपने अभी इस point पे how many people paid for the product approximately?
Over 50,000 people have paid.
Over 50,000 people. जब आपने प्राइस धीरे धीरे बढ़ाया 99 से 299, 399, 499 करा, what was the change? Did you observe something? क्या लोग drop हुए, क्या लोग बढ़े? How was the trend?
So in some scenarios, like probably 99 to 199, there was no change in terms of number of people buying. Almost the same number of people buying, revenue doubled. At certain points, you start seeing the dip in conversion in terms of number of people buying, but the per person revenue has gone up. So the net, like the product of these two, which is your final revenue, is going up. So you figure that out. So there'll be some price points where increasing will not change anything. Same number of people buy. At some point, you will see some people dropping out because अब कुछ लोगों के लिए prohibitive pricing range में जाने लग गया है, लेकिन कुछ लोगों के लिए अभी भी ये normal price है. The idea is to get to a price where for a large chunk of people, it is an optimal price where they'll be okay to pay this and you also make the maximum revenue that you can make. But it's iterative, and honestly I'll say we are still in our journey to crack this completely, and more experiments for us to.
जैसे YouTube में ऐड आता है, जैसे अगर कोई भी वीडियो डालते हैं तो उस पर कुछ ऐड प्रॉफिट जनरेट होता है और वहाँ पर CPM होता है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती हैं. वैसे अगर आपके ऐप पे मैं अगर ऐड देना चाहूँ तो मैं गूगल के पास जाऊँगा, गूगल आपको ऐड चलाएगा. हाउ मच डू यू अर्न फ्रॉम एन ऐप? गिव अस मैट्रिसेस, गिव अस नंबर्स.
So ads, हम लोग ने जैसे ads चलाने के multiple तरीके हैं. Easiest way is Google Ad Mob, which you can integrate, and Google को आप define कर देते हो ad spots, that these are the places where you can show an ad. Ads के अलग अलग sizes होते हैं. This ad, smaller ad, bigger ad, video ad, interstitial ad, etc.
Skippable, non-skippable, ऐसा
all
वैसा.
of those things are available, which you can tell Google that this is what I'm willing to go with. हर एक की price अलग-अलग है. Interstitial would get you the maximum revenue. Interstitial, which is a full screen video ad जो play होता है, पूरी app cover करके वो play होता है, and you can't close it till 5 seconds. वो भी 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds अलग-अलग आते हैं. That gives you the maximum revenue. CPMs, I'm not 100% sure, but a CPM for an interstitial would probably hover around $1 to $2 CPM India में. I think उस range में होगा, but I'm not 100% sure of this. And for the banner ads, it's smaller. So I think depending on how many ads are you showing and what kinds of ads are you showing, the ad revenue per user could vary significantly.
What's the average amount of time a person uses an app once he opens? Is it an important metric to know?
It is an important metric, amount of time spent in the app, because that then gives you the opportunity to show them more ads. That is something that in our case is not a very big number, because our objective is we are a utility product. People come in here to get a job done. We want to help them get that job done as fast as they can. Ad दिखाऊंगा तो उनको काम करने में time लगेगा. That's a bad UX. User experience खराब होता है. People don't want to do that. So we've been conscious about where we show ads and how many ads do we show. So if someone has come in the app to scan, the moment they've clicked on a scan button, they won't see ad in Kaagaz till their scan is completed, because they're here for that task. In between, I don't want to
ruin the user experience, right?
Scan complete होगा, उसके बाद ही उनको कोई ad दिखेगा. तो we have tried to be conscious. उसमें भी we've gone through iterations where we had like very low ads to slightly increasing the ads and trying different ad formats and ad sizes to figure out what is that optimal stage where user experience is not hampered. Still there is a revenue opportunity.
What is that optimal stage?
यार वो ऐप में आपको फिगर आउट करना पड़ेगा कि at what point user experience starts going down and users start uninstalling the app or not using the app. You don't want that. You want people to use your app, and that could vary differently for different products and within the same product also. So in case of scanning, there's no ad in between, but in case of poster maker, for a free version to download a poster, we also show an ad. If you're using it for free, downloading a free poster, you will have to watch an ad, which is an interstitial ad. So at that point, user is okay because it's not a time-sensitive task. This is a poster which they can share, 2 minutes later also. Scanning mein, they just want to make sure that it's done properly right now, and their job is done completely. They're probably sitting on some website already, जहाँ पे already एक form भर चुके हैं, एक वो upload करना है. They want to not take chances on that. While in case of posters, they are thinking of putting it on let's say their social media handles, and they can kind of deal with an ad for having it for free. तो वो you'll have to basically figure out.
पोस्टर जो आपने ऐप बनाया वो कागज ऐप का एक पार्ट है या एक नया ऐप है?
So it started as part of Kaagaz app. Kaagaz app में posters का एक section है. We spun that off as an independent app last year.
Right. And when it is the right time to spun off a feature into an app.
So when we started, the idea for us was we are building a one-stop app for everything for this user.
Okay.
If you think of a small business, an individual business user, वो दिन में स्कैन भी कर रहा है, PDF आई है उसे रीड भी कर रहा है, डॉक्यूमेंट्स को फ़ोन पे स्टोर भी कर रहा है, एडिट भी कर रहा है और अपना पोस्टर बना के अपलोड भी कर रहा है, all within a day. Like in a span of a day itself, they may be doing different things at a different time. So we thought this one app should be how it should be done. But what we noticed was that people are coming in the app, but they're not exploring the poster section. While it has a prominence in the app in terms of being available for the users, they're not exploring it. If I have 4 lakh people coming in, only a small percentage is going in that poster area, and only some of them are making a poster. So that was kind of a trigger for us to think कि लोग जा क्यों नहीं रहे. And thinking deeper, we figured that, and talking to our users also, we figured that people are thinking of Kaagaz as a documents app. Posters, though, is the use case for the same person, in their minds it's a different activity.
How did you figure that it's a different activity in their mind?
So one was based on the behavior that we saw कि ये है, हमने push भी करके देख लिया कि इस फीचर को पुश भी किया within the app.
फीचर को push?
मतलब इन ऐप पुशेस आप दे सकते हो, नोटिफिकेशंस दे सकते हो, नजेस दे सकते हो, हाईलाइट करके दिखा सकते हो कि ये फीचर है. ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स आर देयर. वी ट्राइड पुशिंग बट यूजेज नहीं आ रहा था. So that's where we kind of realized कि this is an app that they relate to with documents. The other part is they're coming in here to do an action because the document वाला काम जो है वो need based है. Scan करना है तभी वो app में आता है. They don't open our app otherwise. Unless they have a work to do. Now they are here to do a work. Now you're trying to tell them कि poster भी है. Even if they look at it, they'll see अभी तो मेरे को मेरा काम complete करना है. I'll come to it later. And they don't have that connection here. Once they've downloaded the poster app, which has which they were looking for. They were looking to make a poster for their business or for a festival. So they downloaded that app for that. The intent is different. Intent here is to make a poster. So the conversion was almost download to poster made. It's a 10x better performance in an independent app versus inside Kaagaz. While we still have it in Kaagaz and we have certain thoughts around what we want to do there, but independent product has a 10x better per user level usage between the two apps.
This is a study.
This is an actual number that we've got in our case. And यहाँ intent clear है. यहाँ पे this is an app where they come just to look कि क्या available है. It's not like a work dependent कि अभी कुछ काम है तो ही आऊँगा. They come and explore, see what's happening today and post about it. So the behavior different है.
What's the approximate CAC in an app business, which is a good CAC, and how do you calculate LTV in your case?
So CAC can again vary depending on what kind of product it is.
Right.
So a product which has a very high intent and very high inherent demand, people are looking for it, your CAC will be low.
Okay.
So for a utility product like ours, people look for these apps. These are not push products. I can't push someone to download a scanning app unless they want a scanning activity to be done.
Right.
So even if I do that, it will just help me build my brand a little bit. That the day they want, actually they need a scanning app, they might remember my app when they see it on Play Store and download it. So वो factor है, but it's not a push product, it's a pull product, need based product है. तो जब need होगी तो वो डाउनलोड करेगा तो वहाँ पर कैक्स कम होती है.
कितने रेंज की कैक जनरली अच्छी होती है और कम होती है? आपके केस में व्हाट्स योर एवरेज कैक?
So again, अच्छा बुरा is dependent on
the business
because CAC in itself doesn't make anything. It's the revenue that you will eventually make from this user is what
which is
matters.
LTV.
So CAC can be very low, but if the conversion to paid is also very low, then this lower CAC also doesn't mean much because paid user का CAC बढ़ जाएगा.
Right.
तो ये तो install का CAC है जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि वो बहुत कम मिल सकता है.
Right.
But paid user का CAC is 100 install आए, उसमें से 2 ने पे किया, तो paid user का CAC is
divided by
it's 50 times of the original price of download क्योंकि 2 लोगों ने ही पे किया.
Right.
तो वो फिर पेड यूजर का CAC अलग हो जाता है. एंड देन यू हैव टू फिगर आउट कि आप उससे चार्ज कितना कर रहे हो और उस चार्ज के कंपैरिजन में CAC कितना है. द रेवेन्यू दैट द LTV दैट यू कैन मेक फ्रॉम दैट यूजर वर्सेस दिस पेड यूजर का CAC इज व्हाट यू नीड टू लुक एट. सो दैट कैन वेरी अ लॉट डिपेंडिंग ऑन द काइंड ऑफ बिजनेस दैट यू हैव.
How do you calculate the LTV in your business?
So LTV, we charge right now annual subscription.
$499.
We have $499. We have a 3-month subscription, which is also something that we are now trying to push more on. So हमारे लिए, so LTV is an estimate with respect to how long you think your user is going to be there.
How long do you think for
And
Kaagaz?
some of it is based on also the retention numbers that you see. For us, right now, our LTV to CAC would make sense if I can get user to buy 1 year subscription, and then my LTV to CAC equation works well. If with the 1 year, so in that sense you can think of it like a 1 year payback in that sense कि उसने अगर 1 साल का subscription ले लिया तो it's paid back at the paid user CAC level.
Right.
Ideal would be much smaller. So if you can get to something around 6 months payback, which is to say that abhi, let's say someone starts buying our 3-month plan, the moment they've bought 2 3-month plans, we've made money on that user. So LTV to CAC, LTV then of course, I also believe our product has a larger potential LTV.
Right.
Because it is an ongoing use case. And the good part about utility products is once the user is using it, unless you screw up the core use case that they came for,
Right.
they don't change apps because something new is available in the market.
Right.
Because their job is getting done here, they're happy, they'll continue to use it. Either you become exorbitantly expensive, then they may think of switching, or you start screwing up the core use case, then they start thinking of switching. There's also high switching cost because after using it for a few months, they have a certain amount of documents already in here. Now, if they have to move to another one, they'll have to figure out how to migrate all of this to a new product, which is also something that people makes it difficult to switch. So, I believe there is from an LTV perspective, there is much more opportunity for us to make money over time.
लास्ट 2 सवाल है मेरे. एक उससे पहले आज की डेट में आपको एक यूजर को अक्वायर करने में कितना पैसा खर्च करना पड़ता है?
So for our install, it is under 10 rupees.
इतने में हो जाता है?
हाँ, मतलब to get an install. To get them converted, there's of course the conversion equation that we are basically trying to optimize right now, but that increases significantly. That's where our CAC to like the payback period is right now hovering around 1 year.
What's that conversion equation? How do you do that?
So that's basically simple कि आपने कितने लोग को इंस्टॉल कराया, उसमें से कितने लोगों ने पे किया.
Got it.
तो वो जो परसेंटेज है,
जनरली वो परसेंटेज कितना होता है?
सो यूटिलिटी एप्स का अगेन कैटेगरी डिफरेंट करता है. यूटिलिटी एप्स ग्लोबली हैव सीन यूटिलिटी एंड प्रीमियम प्रोडक्ट्स व्हिच हैव अ फ्री टियर आल्सो यूजुअली सी अ 2 to 3% globally. That is possible, but in some product categories this number can be 10-12% also. I hear numbers more than 15% also in India.
ये सारा डेटा कहाँ से मिल सकता है?
कितना होता है?
हाँ, कितना होता है?
यार,
क्या होता है? ये how do you is there a way to understand this, know this, compare our?
So there are people who have spoken to multiple companies. So what we were talking about early on, let's say Lenny's podcast is there, his newsletter is there. There are many such people who write about products, who have done some research. They've spoken to multiple companies and gathered data and put in some collated form for different categories. कि इस category के लिए ये numbers इस range में होते हैं, इस category के लिए इस range में होते हैं.
एक प्रोजेक्ट जब आप ऐप जैसा प्रोजेक्ट बनाते हो, so you want it to be more engaging, and you sometimes you learn from case studies, books, podcasts like Lenny, books like Hooked by Neeraj. You must have actionable insights. बहुत सारी चीज़ होती हैं. अगर आज कोई आदमी, कोई बच्चा बनाना चाहे, what will be the resources that you will tell him or her to definitely go through before building something like this? Those can be books, those can be podcasts, those can be people to learn from, those can be Twitter folks to follow. What that could be?
Yeah, if you're looking to learn about product and in general how to build products like these, you should look at, there are few product people very active on multiple platforms. Lenny is one. Then on Twitter there are a bunch of people, and then books of course are there. You can read Hooked, and then there are more books around product that you can.
But if you have to explain your YC experience in one paragraph or something, how was the YC experience?
So YC, for us, YC was great. You need to know what you're looking for when you're thinking of going to YC. If you're a first-time founder, YC is amazing because they've condensed knowledge from thousands of startups that they've seen, scale to amazing levels, and also have struggled or failed. They've distilled all of that into that 3-month program, where the partners that you'll get, the sessions that they'll organize, the speakers that they'll get, will give you insights so distilled that you will immediately know what to do, what not to do. And as we were second-time founders, we also found a lot of value in it. For us, a lot of those things were not new. We had experienced that in our previous startup and faced those things. But it was a reminder for us that ये हमारे साथ हुआ था and this is something that is happening. 2, it gives you that thing that it's not something that happened unique with you. It happens all the time with all the startups. So it is something that you should not get too worried about, as well as you should be conscious about as well, that this happens. It cannot be that ये तो किसी और के साथ होता है, ये मेरे साथ नहीं होगा. Because they have seen thousands of companies and distilled that information, and if they are putting it out, you should acknowledge कि ये होता है, and अभी तक आपके साथ नहीं हुआ है तो be conscious about it. हुआ है तो you relate to it. That is one very important part. And then of course, from a product thinking perspective, we started monetizing post YC. YC was very clear. Till that time, we focused on user growth only. YC was very clear that you've built something cool. A lot of people are using it. Now you need to prove that are you just another cool app to have on my phone, or I'm willing to pay for it. You have to prove that now. So you need to start monetizing. the program is designed in a way that it pushes for rapid progress in that short period. They have a weekly catch-up call. You have to commit publicly with a small group that this is what you're planning to do in the next week, and then come back and say what happened, what did not happen.
तो 3 महीने आप वही रहते हो?
हमने जब किया था, this was just after COVID.
ऑनलाइन हुआ था.
हाँ, so like with COVID it just ended 2022, तो online ही था हमारा. Now it is back physical, so people have to travel. हमारा वाला में हम इंडिया में ही थे. We did it over Zoom.
What's the biggest challenge, that unsolved challenge that you are trying to face, which you are facing right now, which you are figuring
I
solution
think
for?
the biggest challenge for us is monetizing at scale, and we have certain levers that we understand. We're figuring out more levers that we can pull. For example, I gave you the example of when someone has to compress at that point,
You asked for.
they will pay. We are trying to figure out more such ways where we can charge, where the need is so strong. We are also trying to figure more people. How do we figure out more people who have this need and get them to that step? So that is something that we are focusing on. I think largely it's around that.
Is there any white space, not in this category but other category also, which you clearly see? क्योंकि बहुत बार क्या होता है, लोग नहीं देख पाते white space, बहुत time लग जाता है, जैसे आपको शुरुआत में time लग गया था.
Right.
A lot of young founders are watching it, but sometimes as entrepreneurs you see white space but you can't do anything to solve that, right? Because you are already engaged in solving some problem. Do you see any white space which you like to talk about, which you think, yeah, this can be something big if somebody solves for this?
Honestly, after doing it for 2-3 times, I've realized कि as such white spaces होती नहीं है. There are people who are already working on it. Whenever you start, the 3 companies that I've started, every time I knew so many other people who were also doing the same thing at the same time, which I got in some cases I knew it before, some cases I got to know later. But if you are able to think of it, and that's where I say idea is important, but don't just kind of leave it at that, because वो idea उसी time पे 10 और लोगों को आ रहा है. Majority of the cases, unless you're doing something breakthrough, technology change that you're doing.
OpenAI नहीं बने जब तक आप ChatGPT या कुछ नया revolutionary
I'm sure वो भी, the moment ChatGPT got launched, immediately Google also had something, and Microsoft also. I mean, Microsoft worked with them, but multiple people came in. Open source also came in. It cannot happen कि सबने ChatGPT के launch के 1 महीने बाद बना लिया. They were also all working on it, and it all came out together at that point. So from that perspective, I don't see there is a clear white space, but there are opportunities always. Best way to look at, if you're thinking of starting up and you don't know what to work on, I have seen 2 types of frameworks that work. I have done mostly one, but the other one is what happened with Kaagaz. First framework is you simply solve the problem that you are facing, or you see people around you facing. So India Interns started that way. Tapp Me was in a sense started that way. Sorted was started that way, where I was trying to solve a problem that I faced or people I know face. That's the easiest way to do it.
Thanks a ton, a million times for doing this. Really grateful.